Greetings and welcome to The Black Room. This is the podcast for all things erotic mind control, and I am your host, Callidus, joined once again by prolific mind control author and dear friend of mine, Madam Kistulot. Welcome back.
Always a pleasure to be here.
And I think that, let's see, third appearance? Might as well just start.
This would be my third, which is supposed to be a charm.
I'm charmed. Although that has a different, it just occurred to me, that has a very different context
It does.
in the circles that we travel, doesn't it?
I have to scribble that down because I've never used that in anything before. But yeah, no, it's always a pleasure to be on here because of the way that just something new always comes out that I wouldn't have expected.
Yes, and surprises are a delight. Surprises here at the top, because I realized I forgot to do this in the last show that you were on, but I wanted to let people know right at the top, where can they find you and some of your wonderful written words.
Well, thank you very much. Sorry, there's this little part of me. I realized the other day that I started writing back in 2005.
Okay.
And it's 2018 right now, which means I've been writing for like 13 years now.
Yes.
Which means that when I started, Trilby hadn't even written that much. Like the time there isn't
right.
the same. I'm not saying that I have this lofty position above, but it's just this. I've been writing longer now than the old guard was when I started, and it blows my mind.
Right.
But I have a website, Madam Kistulot's domain, which is just madamkistulot.net. Kistulot's a bit of a weird word to spell. It'll be on the site, but also Simon graciously keeps that link there, and I really appreciate it because my reading order can get a little bit convoluted. I know that I puts it at the top of all of their works for a reason, and I've occasionally considered it, but if you're ever curious about the order of things, and that also in my bio section has links to my Tumblr, Twitter, anywhere really. I try and keep that. I'm trying now, rather, because I never did this before, to keep that updated with where I am on the net. And additionally, recently I've started out to the Garden of MC, which used to be the Argent Garden way back when it split off from the MCF or the Mind Control Forum.
Yeah.
I've sort of started to reintegrate myself over there and started up the Discord server.
It's a great place to be, number one. And number two, a Discord server is excellent.
You can pop in, you can pop out, you can have little conversations, and
with some terrific people in the EMC community.
Yeah, I'm hoping to we've already got a pretty good showing of just people that have seen the link various places. I'm hoping to keep pushing it out so we can keep getting more people, because the more people we can get to talk about mind control, the better.
I fully agree with you, which is one of the reasons why we are doing this right now.
Yes.
But I'm delighted, as I told you earlier. I was so excited when I looked at the document here that we prepared for the show and saw the Garden of MC's Discord server link in the show notes, and it's very interesting because we met on Discord. That's kind of how we reconnected recently, and I think that we were on Discord both looking for the same thing, which was, gee, is there some really great fun place to hang out and talk mind control with terrific people? And it's not to say that the Garden of MC is not the only game in town. There's a bunch of others, and I'm on a number of them, as you are as well.
Yeah.
But it's just that the Garden of MC has a certain homey kind of feeling, given the fact that I know that you were very active there at one time. I've hung out there in the past quite a bit, and so it's terrific to see that terrific community making inroads into Discord, which is a great platform.
And one of the things you see with a lot of Discord, and this isn't to say anything bad about it, because I adore hypnosis.
Yes.
But a lot of the Discords that you see are more focused on that side of things, which is totally again, I do it.
Yeah.
I can't go a day without it, really. But it's nice to be able to have a place that's more inherently, brought together for the more fictive side of things, because some days you don't want to talk about, how exactly to brain fry someone else. You want to talk about how wasn't that one scene in that Sarah story really hot?
Yeah.
And there you go.
Yeah, and so that's I agree with you. I'm glad that there are servers out there that are really just about people connecting and playing, and hopefully having a really fun time and meeting maybe somebody that they really connect with, and that this hypnotist subject kind of pairing that they really find partner, that play partner, whatever that they're looking for. But more often than not, I'm the guy that's just, wanting to say, I just reread this Tabaco story, and I just noticed this amazing detail that makes it even more hot for me. Has anybody else seen this?
Like, did you notice the fact that they refer to the prophets in adaptation? They also refer to it in Allegiance. Now, I don't know about you. I contacted Tabaco. There's no direct relation. I did
But what
actually way
if?
back when.
Yeah. Did she
I mean, who knows?
confirm? Did she confirm?
I think she basically confirmed that it's a good sci-fi trope for a way to refer to a vague religion without getting into detail, which I don't blame her for, because what are you going to do? I mean,
Clever.
there are people that write for the sake of sociology, and Tabaco's not one of them. I don't blame her.
Very clever. So the Garden of MC Discord server, that link is in the show notes, and definitely go over there and hang out. I'm there right now, I think. Well, actually, I'm talking to you right now, but some part of my mind is over there right now in the Discord server as well. So stop by and say hello to myself, Madam Kistulot, or any of the other wonderful people that are there, and to all of the wonderful people that are currently on the Garden of MC Discord server. We say hi.
Hi.
All right. So this week, we've got 3 topics that we're going to go through this week. And here at the top of the show, we're going to talk about an excellent manga that Madam Kistulot recently introduced me to. It's a pretty lengthy series. I mean, I think it's at least 3 volumes, 17 chapters, and that's just sort of the first run. Then there's a couple of follow-up and spin-off type of books as well. So it's a lot of material, and a lot of mind control, different varieties of mind control, and lots of plump sexiness as well.
Yes. Yeah. If anyone could say anything about Tamaki Nozomu's art, it's that it is, no matter what is being captured, it's good.
This is very true. So that's Eighth Wonder. The what's the full title? Is it the Awesome Eighth Wonder?
Depending, one of the spin-off dojins was officially named Amazing Eighth Wonder. Like the manga was either Uchi no Musume ni Te o Dasuna,
which is
or Don't Meddle in My Daughter.
Don't Meddle in My Daughter, right?
They changed it to Don't Meddle with My Daughter, but like it's in English in the Japanese version saying in, so I'm gonna go back and forth.
Right. So anyway, that's topic 1. Topic 2, we're going to continue our deep dive into Eye of Serpent's amazing cycle of the ancients. I'm done with the first cycle. We're both done with the first cycle. One of us, which is not me, is also done with the second cycle.
I couldn't stop.
I'm catching up. Again, a common trope in mind control circles. Just couldn't stop. But we're going to talk about some more of the excellent fiction of Eye of Serpent. And then in the last topic, we're going to be talking about a very interesting sort of culture. It's a culture segment, I guess, but we're going to talk about a terrific post that Madam Kistulot wrote about citing the original artists if you are in the business of manipulating photos or videos, which obviously I am in. And so we're going to talk about that and discuss it. Should be very interesting. First up, though, to the sexiness. So, Don't Meddle with My Daughter, Don't Meddle in My Daughter, or alternatively, as it may be known, The Amazing Eighth Wonder, is a superhero-themed manga that I have read volumes 1 through 3. I've read the first 17 chapters or whatever, and then I've read a couple of the follow-ups. But there's still a few things, like there's 2 MILF of Steel books that I haven't read, and a couple of other little things. But I've read the bulk of this series, and it was one of those things that you and I were chatting on Discord one night, and you were telling me, and I was admitting I'm pretty ignorant as far as manga and anime. There's a couple of things here and there I'm aware of, but by and large, it's not the sandbox I play in. So Madam Kistulot is schooling me and telling me about some of this great stuff, and she gets a couple paragraphs in to describe it. It's like, it's really amazing. There's this woman, she's a superhero, and then her daughter kind of takes up the mantle, becomes a superhero. The woman's very voluptuous. At one point, she gets these things, these vibrators, and they brainwash her. And I said, stop right there, and why don't you tell me how I can find this? So anyway, you take it away since you're the series originator here. Tell us a little bit about this manga. It's chock-a-block full of mind control sexiness, but also it's actually got some really fun drama and some really legitimate kind of superhero, kind of kaiju monster moments and just all kinds of fun stuff.
Yeah, so I'll admit I've been really bad. I've owned the three collected works in Japanese for a long time because I was studying. I just got out of school somewhat recently, and my translation work isn't great, so don't go looking for it anywhere. And I can say some basic stuff like the title, but my goal when I heard that Seven Seas was going to be bringing it over was, hey, it's a perfect opportunity. I can buy the Japanese manga and compare my translations. It'll be great. I never got around to it because life is really busy.
Yes.
But I found the series one day because of a picture on Pixiv. Well, I think it was actually on HypnoHub, but it was originally from Pixiv, of this superhero being penetrated through nipples and lower, and just very dark room,
Classy.
dim eyes,
I like that.
I can't help it. Looking like very out of it with a woman standing in the darkness. I'm just thinking, okay, what is this? Because you don't really see a lot of mature superheroes, just in general. There's a lot of focus. I mean, because there's lots of MC porn, say, like Batgirl, for example, and Supergirl, etc. But you don't really see a lot of. You see some PG, but they tend to play down what I like about PG, not just the boobs. So I was pretty excited about it. I started looking it up, and I find that there's this long-running series that wasn't at least fully translated at the time, and I started digging into it. And even just from looking through without being able to actually read them at first, because though there were translations online before Seven Seas brought it over, I didn't find those at first. You've got this very provocatively just dressed character for how much of a prude she likes to pretend that she is, flying after. She tries really hard, but you can't believe her when she dresses like that. I mean, I know it's her like ancestral clothing because she's sort of a bit of a Wonder Woman XP. Not exactly. There's a lot of
there's
a lot of fun playing with. Yeah. And then, like, the first major thing we've got after, like, some robots are, there's this plant that's just in the middle of this town that these women are just walking up to and then being converted into plant slaves. And then you got this beautiful shot of this woman
immediately.
Yeah, I mean, it's right there. And you just got this rose right between her legs, and a flower growing out, like, not out of her eye, but covering over it, and it's just and they're completely out of it, and then we just move from there. And it's like, even just looking at the additional works, because I'm a really bad. I find a series I like and I kind of follow it obsessively. So I actually have the manga that's released so far. I have the Amazing Eighth Wonder spin-offs, the Uncanny Eighth Wonder newer stuff that's only up to 2, and then the Milk of Steel, which shows how much it's influenced by movie titles, because you've got Milk of Steel Returns, and then Milk of Steel Forever, which is pretty classy.
Come on.
You've got Parasites. You've got Possession by strange dark forces that make you some kind of latex dominatrix.
Right. Which is, sign me up.
No, she's great. Which is another thing too. Like you mentioned, it's good superhero schlock.
It is.
It's not just. I mean, as porn, it's great. You're not going to be disappointed by using it for erotic purposes, so to speak. You're not.
But if you want to read it and enjoy it, you can do that too.
Yeah, and the fact that you've got characters you can really care about, that there's really fighting, there's really struggling, beyond just literally vanquishing a monster by having your pent-up sexual frustration destroy it. Which, shades of La Blue Girl there, if anyone.
Definitely. I mean, that's an oldie but goldie.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's. I would say I'm dating myself there, but it's one of those classics I hope stays around known, if only just so that someone else can suffer through that. But it's just this great series where you've got the interplay of a very clueless daughter who's trying her hardest, but is just not necessarily as serious as maybe one should be as the strongest superhero in the world.
But she's earnest. Very earnest.
Yeah, she's very earnest. and her mother who retired but then can't retire because no superhero is ready. Like, she retired because of the fact that you can't keep this up without having very embarrassing things happen to you constantly. And these days, people have cell phones. Her costume used to get destroyed every single day, but no one had cell phones back then.
Right.
So she's constantly swooping in.
Yep, getting a costume ripped open and then and then showing up on Twitter.
It would just it would happen endlessly. So you have, this super mom just flying in, nope, destroying cameras, moving off, or just moving too fast and just making it so she's not there anymore, or solving situations. And it's like, I got it because, eventually she gets corrupted into this dark version of herself who's wearing barely anything at all, being controlled by a pair of vibrators. This is great in every possible way.
Yes.
But by the time I got to that plot, I actually cared.
I agree, and that comes relatively late in the series, or
Yeah.
at least in those first 3 volumes. I think that's maybe chapter 11 or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's definitely over the halfway point. But I really agree with you, and I actually have to say the conclusion of volume 3, I
It's
thought was
definitely not just like, if I was just waiting for that, I would have been disappointed because, you're not getting to that very quickly.
no, you're not, but it's satisfying.
But it's very satisfying.
It's good drama, as opposed to porn with a plot, which has I've not gotten there yet. I mean, somebody will get there eventually, I guess, but not yet.
No, and the characters, even when they're doing completely ridiculous things like trying to win a duel by spontaneous cunnilingus, it works.
Yes.
And you can kind of get the silliest moment still works. It almost feels like the levels of ridiculousness you'd get with some like Toriyama schlock.
It's very interesting how, and again, I'm not familiar with enough manga to really make this evaluation, but at least to me, outsider looking in, it does feel like the books manage to strike the perfect balance of there's always a little humor to be mined. There's always a bit of really legit drama to be mined, and then of course, there's always the eroticism. There's always the sexiness to be had. But they really kind of managed to balance it in a very entertaining way.
Yeah, I mean, the best ongoing MC heavy manga that I was following was Dino Ranger, which was another big classic. The Zofa invading, lots of black dripping all over everyone, which did a lot of the good drama.
I remember. Yeah, I've read a few of those. I never finished it, but I've read at least four of those, I think.
Yeah, I don't know what they're up to these days. I know the original translator stopped doing it, or something happened, but that was a good series. There was much more in the drama direction and totally more of a Sentai than your American superhero sort of look. Right. But it's really adding in that 4-color and really leaning into it means you get those moments where it's like one of the main forces we have in the series is basically a shield XV. And it's led by basically Rule 63 Nick Fury, although an eye patch that bears some resemblance to other things we'll be talking about later.
Yes, it does. It's also what's under the eye patch.
Exactly. And when I realized we were going to be talking about both of these things today, a little part of me was like, wait, did I really set that up? Because I didn't mean to do that, but
it did.
I mean, it happened.
It does have a nice synchronicity to it, though, doesn't it?
Yeah, and you've got this funny interplay of this very serious, if very over the top. I mean, everything's over the top sexualized in this, which is great. It's not pretending it's not, but you got it's very tongue in cheek, aware of both how silly its premises are and just the general idea of 4-color superheroics are, and getting that blended with just nonstop fetish porn is pretty great.
I agree. It's great, and it's one of those things that I'm very happy exists because it's just endlessly entertaining. It again, like the sort of the pacing of it, the pacing of a little bit of plot, a little bit of fun, a little bit of porn, a little bit more fun, a little bit plot, some drama, porn. like the it's a very, very satisfying roller coaster to ride. You can't be doing, you can't just be doing the tallest climb and then drop in the world for 3 minutes. The roller coaster's got to it's got to do different things,
Yeah.
and these
And
books managed to ride those rails, to finish this
the
analogy in a very awkward way.
no, I mean, I think it works just fine. The expanded works veer much more into the. Well, I mean, we're a dojin, so we have even less worries to be concerned about. Let's get to the porn.
Right.
But it still somehow manages to still have, like, you still have that touching moment at the end, or the humor amidst everything, or the, did you really just do this to a group of kids? Did you really just do this? Which
Yes.
is.
Yes, you did.
And it's, yeah, MILF of Steel Forever is one of those comics that, if you read it originally in Japanese, you get a very different idea. When you can't read it, I should say. A very different idea of what's going on. And I would recommend that read first through for the MC Fetishist.
Right.
And then read it in English, because it's still funny. It's just not actually as MC as it looks.
So let's talk about a couple of highlights. We've hinted at a few things here.
Yeah.
The mind control plant saga is a very, very cool one visually. So there is help me remember how it all starts, but there is does something crash? I mean, is it like a seed pod crashes into the earth?
I think so.
I can't remember how it initially starts, but yeah, it's like some urban environment.
Yeah, it's just there's a flower and she's called up to go and deal with it, and it's just already been there.
Yeah, but it's a carnivorous flower. It's huge. Carnivorous flower, huge, and it's eating women. There's a bunch of women walking down the sidewalk in the street. Boom, plant busts up through the pavement, starts eating the women, and everybody's horrified because, hey, this plant just ate these women. So, Eighth Wonder, the younger, is called in by, and we have to say the name. It's not Shield. It's Nude.
Yes.
And it's what's the acronym stand for again?
Gosh, I'm never gonna remember. I'm gonna try and find it now, but
National Undercover, I can't remember, but
Department of something. It's very much a stretch, to say the least.
It's like that gag in the first episode of Agents of Shield. Strategic Homeland Interdiction, Logistics Division, whatever. What do you think that means? It means somebody really wanted our name to be S.H.I.E.L.D. That's effectively what it is. So anyway, Nude and female Nick Fury with the eye patch call in Eighth Wonder the younger. She flies in to save the day. And of course, just as she arrives, the women who this plant ate start spilling back out of it. And all of them sort of now wrapped in these beautiful vines and flowers, penetrating them, covering an eye, as you said, just like all these like really bizarre and sort of just these interesting shapes and contrast, these vines wrapped around these women. It's come to find out they're actually tethered to the plant still, and they just start ravishing men in the streets, basically.
Yes. Basically, just rushing right at them.
Just rushing at them because they're tethered to the plant, and the sexual energy is what's feeding the plant, as it always does in these situations.
The pleasure fluid secreted by women when they orgasm provide the creature with nutrients, to quote the English translation.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. But that image of the plant women spilling out, it's terrific. I mean, it is like so many things that you've read on the archive over the years, so many sort of squick kind of stories and things, and just that one or two panels where you really get a chance to focus on it and see it is tremendous.
So the plant women, they're going after the men, and then Kara's there, who's the name of the daughter, the younger Eighth Wonder, just because since they both have the same super name, which causes amusing problems throughout the series.
Yes, it's very intentional, no doubt.
Very intentional. She's there, and they're starting to tackle her, which of course her mother can't stand. Because Athena, which is again, there's no way they're not trying to do this. I mean, it openly admits it later on, all but can't sit by, goes right for the root of the plant itself.
Yep.
And of course ends up swallowed up by it and ravished as I don't even think they make much of a point of her clothes lasting or even how they get dissolved. They're just gone.
It's just because tentacles plus clothes equals no clothes.
Exactly, which, I mean, that's science. I'm not about to argue.
Tentacles are antimatter to clothes.
Yes, and it's, we just
Everyone
have to
knows
accept it.
Yes. If there's one thing you're gonna suspend your disbelief over, it's this point.
Yes. And then, of course, however, there's the fact that, how exactly is it described? Similar to a snake's belly being split open after it consumes prey that's too large, the amount of ecstasy that it absorbed from Athena, the eighth wonder, was so great that it overloaded.
That's right.
And it just basically explodes.
Yes, because, Athena, who's the older eighth wonder, she still has to get her groove on too.
And unfortunately, it's been a while.
As you can imagine, she's got some pent up frustration that this poor, now dead plant had to endure. It's really, it's really fun. But
it is.
What else is really fun is that there are so many forms of mind control that appear throughout this series. I'm just trying to think of a few. There's the bugs. There's like the little mind control insect bugs, like little like nano bugs.
Yeah, sort of like more of like a little mosquito sort of thing than like, say, adaptation, for example.
Yeah, and that one's not quite played for sexiness. If I'm remembering, that's like they cause people to get angry and go berserk and start beating people. And the real gotcha there though is that they get the younger eighth wonder. She gets hit with one of these bugs, and then they got a real problem because now they've got a super who's under this rage spell and going berserk. There's a villainous character like a puppet master character, with like the marionette strings.
Yes.
There's
Honey the Hugger.
Honey the Hugger. Yeah.
Such a great name. Just she actually got a figure made of her somewhat recently, which I didn't think they got the head quite right, but otherwise it was kind of amusing. She's basically just covered head to toe with straps that she can use to wrap people up.
Black latex straps. It's not a bad look.
It's not. And then, of course, pasties, because you had to have pasties.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember. Well, no, let's talk a little. Okay, so let's talk about this female Nick Fury kind of character.
Yes.
Because, as you said, she has an eye patch.
Mm-hmm.
And as we come to find out during the series, she has a secret. And much in the way that Coral d'Amber, as we were talking about in the last show we were both on together, we were talking about Eye of Serpent and Coral d'Amber. Every time that eye patch comes up, crazy, smutty stuff is about to happen. And it's very interesting to see kind of a parallel thing happen with this character.
And the fact that even though, given that, Athena, our eighth wonder, the cliche for your brick is that they're completely vulnerable to mind control, which is something I've always been a fan of.
Right.
But the fact that the woman that was Nick Fury, and I feel terrible, I can't remember her name, but
I'll look it up. I'll look it up while we're talking. I'll figure out who it is.
And she used to be a villain, and a pretty dangerous one, because she can just go around taking over whoever she wants. But Athena outsmarted her, because she's not just, a great rack. And
well, she is that.
Oh, yes, she is. And managed to, basically be the one person that didn't end up getting taken over by her, and basically went, hey, I can crush your head like a grape, or you can not be a jerk anymore. And, she ends up becoming, the head of Nude, because, no one's going to be better than her at that by the end. And the scenes of her basically turning that on the villains when they show up to try and take down the headquarters are definitely, like, even if it's not against a character that you care about or that presents a particular threat you're invested in, it's hot, and it's a potent heat.
It is. So it's Anna, and she's normally referred to as Chief. Everybody just calls her Chief, but it's Anna. And that one in the scene you're talking about where their Nude's base is being stormed, and she essentially tells her troops, stand down, I'll take care of this. And it's like a battalion of orcs, and they're clawing through the hull of their reinforced base or whatever. And so they come streaming in only to find her nude with 3 pasties covering the fun bits,
The bare minimum.
the bare minimum possible. And she and basically she distracts the orc army by beginning an orgy. And it's wonderful. It's just wonderful. And that might even be where I can't remember who's commanding the orc army. They're like, hey, come on, we gotta get the base. And of course, there's these massive erections running the other direction towards Chief Anna.
Oh.
Like, sod this. I'm going over here. This is the better deal. So again, it's sexy, but it's playful and fun. Something that is sexy and dramatic is I want to say it's in chapter 11 where you see that. So there's a character, Artemis.
Yes.
She is kind of she's from the island of the Amazons equivalent, which I think it's actually like a higher dimension in this case, but this sort of Amazonian paradise where Athena originates from before she comes to Earth. And so one of her sisters from this place, Artemis, she's another character that shows up, and there's a cool moment. She's trying to convince Athena to come back at some point. Athena isn't having it. She's invested in life here on Earth now. She's got a daughter, and so on and so forth. And so Artemis leaves. She's flying away, just sailing through the clouds, and then all of a sudden, like, this portal opens up, and the big bad, this really, amazing, dark, sort of sorceress character who, inexplicably wears opera-length gloves and leggings, but nothing neck to nape. And she just suddenly kind of appears out of this portal and grabs Artemis. And then you don't see anything from Artemis for an issue or so. But you understand she's been captured by the enemy. And so then Athena gets captured at the end of a book, issue 10, I guess. Yeah. And then the beginning of issue 11 is Athena waking up in captivity. She's been captured by the enemy forces, which, if we haven't revealed this yet, you'll be delighted to know that the name of the evil enemy organization is Blowjob.
Yeah, I needed the right moment for it, and it just wasn't going to come. It's their blowjob.
Because what else would it be? So anyway, Athena, the older Eighth Wonder, she wakes up. She's in manacles. She's in some evil scientist laboratory deep in the bowels of base Blowjob, and they've got Artemis, and you don't actually recognize it at first, but you're actually witnessing sort of the last few moments of Artemis being brainwashed. And she's got these twin vibrators, there's some sort of contraption. They've got her, like this belt thing they've got her clamped into, this kind of chastity belt looking thing. And Athena has just enough time to get outraged over it before they start using it on her. And I love we'll come back to that. But anyway, so
yes.
Kara, the younger Eighth Wonder, the daughter, she of course races to the base to rescue her mother later in the book, only to discover, naturally, that her mother is no longer Athena the Eighth Wonder. She is now, and I'll give you the exact. Your mother. So this is the dark sorceress. This is the big bad talking to Kara. Your mother is no longer in this world. All who's left is Blowjob's strongest slutty warrior, Deep Throat.
with a brilliant panel of her holding her cape open with the converted Athena standing in front of her with a suit that is more shoulder pad than torso.
It's really shoulder
Is-
pad and thigh high boots is really all and a cape. I mean, there's a cape, so there's that.
Oh, yeah, there is, I suppose. I guess I didn't notice that detail.
It's I can't imagine what else you'd have been looking at. But
and the little, I love the little sci-fi antenna sticking out of her hips.
yes,
It really sells it.
it's divine. It's just divine. But what is really fun about it is that in the following issue, that's the cliffhanger at the end of chapter 11. Chapter 12 is the big confrontation. So now brainwashed Athena fighting her daughter. Artemis is in the mix as well. Artemis's costume is even more interesting. She's got these sort of she's got like these tubes that are like pierced into her nipples and are increasing her pleasure, or something naughty and sinister. So Kara has to face off with both of them in the following issue. Both of them are, of course, under the control of the evil organization known as Blowjob. And these jokes just write themselves.
They do.
I really can't take credit, I must say.
No.
But the following issue is played for some pretty good drama, really.
Yeah.
And it is kind of interesting how they play with that, I guess, that trope of sort of anime and manga, the sexual energy defeating who or whatever, as we've talked about, with the plant. But
Yeah.
it's interesting because the whole sort of thing to it is that these twin vibrators they've somehow tuned Artemis and Athena so that essentially all of their senses convert into pleasure in their brains. So whether they're, seeing something, hearing something, the sensation of touch, taste, everything registers as pleasure in their brains. And that's how they're kind of keeping them under control. Which I think is a really naughty concept. I really like that.
Oh, yeah.
It's a neat idea.
And a bit of a, like, I would call it a spoiler, but the follow-up series are just so silly that they're sort of more like, I would call them a mock game, but that wouldn't really make sense. Like, they're sort of like little silly side stories. Is that after everything gets resolved in the latest of the two, there's a constant ongoing joke that Athena's kind of put on a few pounds.
Yeah.
And while I don't see why anyone would complain, because why would they?
No.
To prove them wrong, she decides to put on her old uniform again, and it shreds.
Yes.
And she's feeling really sad. So she decides, you know what I'm going to do? Wait, I have my deep throat costume.
Right.
That'll make me look good.
And it fits fine.
And then a little girl happens to have the control device and just turns it on.
They just find this remote control and they're like, oh, I wonder what this does. Tap.
She's just treating it like a fidget cube, just like, I wonder what this button does. I guess nothing. And meanwhile, she's beating up every superhero in town.
Yeah, meanwhile, back at home. Yeah, and actually, now that I think about it, another one of those kind of side story books deals with Artemis being brainwashed. And the thing that I like about it, and this is one of those things, it's kind of strange how what you want is not always what works best in execution. Like,
yeah,
what you want is sort of like you want to watch every single moment of, the sexual conditioning, the brainwashing, and all that stuff happen from soup to nuts. That's what you want. But what actually works is not seeing it all. No. And I love the way that at the beginning of issue 11, when Athena wakes up, you get to sort of see, because Artemis is, she's been enduring this for days. You get to see the process at work on Artemis. You kind of see as I said, sort of the end of it. But the point is you kind of get that reveal. Then, so you see the end result. That creates some tension and anxiety when they begin the process on Athena. Then obviously you see the aftermath with Athena and everything. So the pacing of that, not seeing it all, seeing the result of it, seeing the beginning of it happening to your main character, and then, of course, the reveal at the end where the main character is revealed to now be a brainwashed villain. The pacing of that works remarkably well. Even if you think that you want to have a little bit more, it's executed perfectly. But doing that side story issue where you get to see a little bit more of the process with Artemis is just the perfect way to satisfy that, I guess, that craving for dessert that you might have
Yes.
at the end of the main
Yeah.
course.
Yeah, no. All of the MILF of Steel series is like they tend to have one story by the original artist, and then I don't know if they were written by or not, but they have a few Dojin works in them.
Right.
But the nice expansion of things in those is definitely nothing to complain about. I will say that majority of them is text, those ones. So if you're looking at importing those, be aware that that is a thing. If you can't read, you'll be staring at about half the book going, well, that's really nice. There's nude. I can read that because that's still in English, but
Right.
otherwise.
Blowjob's usually in English as well.
Yes.
You won't have any trouble. If the evil organization known as Blowjob is up to anything, you're likely to pick up on that even if it's written in Japanese.
It's a thing. And they also released a little compendium of the various super characters that have appeared throughout with little small detailings of various powers. There's a lot of this is a setting that has a lot of work put into it for what is essentially really goofy fetish porn.
It's true. It's true.
When it comes down to it.
There's a remarkable amount of world building, all things considered. So we've got some links for you to go and check this out if you are so inclined. Amazing Eighth Wonder, otherwise known as Don't Meddle with or in My Daughter.
And unfortunately, there's no way that I'm aware of to get your hands, shall we say, through completely legitimate means on the extended works. They're on sites like Torana, but you'll have to use something like White Rabbit to get them shipped through because customs wouldn't terribly like that. So I'm technically probably shouldn't say that I have them, but I do. So we're just going to all agree that that's not a problem.
That's true, yes. And since we are here solving the world's problems, we'll just go ahead and add that one to the list.
Exactly.
Speaking of the list, the next item on our list for discussion is, of course, our deep dive into the amazing fiction of Eye of Serpent, Part 2. Yes. Last time, we talked about, I think, about 9 stories, the first 3 trilogies that I wrote in the Tales of the Ancients, the Corelliverse. Yes. These 9 stories exclusively dealt with Coral d'Amber. Starting with it's almost 5 trilogies, but I think it ends up, or excuse me, it's almost it's 4 trilogies plus a one-off is actually what fills out the rest of the first cycle. You've got a trilogy that deals exclusively with Celestial Fu. Then there is the Tapestry series, which really that's really where the fun gets started. That's where the real trouble kind of begins. Then after the Tapestry series, which is where all the big stuff happens, is there's sort of there's another trilogy that's just Coral d'Amber, and that's kind of the aftermath, I suppose. And then you've got Unfinished Works and the Forever Afternoon, and then the final trilogy in that first cycle is the Ecstasy and series, Ecstasy and Vengeance, Ecstasy and Submission, Ecstasy and Secrets, which kind of closes things out in a pretty neat way. So we are going to be, if you're looking at this page, we've kind of been going in chronological order as they were written. We're starting with Celestial Fu series. This originally appeared in 2000. Spoilers for everything from the Celestial Fu trilogy, that's starts with Needle Dance, all the way down to Ecstasy and Secrets, which is the end of the first cycle. So if you don't want to know anything, if you're kind of following along, if you're wanting to go and read and then maybe come back and hear what we have to say, those are the stories we're going to be discussing, and we are going to be talking about spoilers. So we just want to give that warning to you before we get into it, which is right now. So,
and there are some pretty big spoilers in there.
There are. I think that as I told you when we started, I was really excited to reread the stuff with Celestial Fu because that was some of my
Yes,
favorite
me too.
back when we were getting into this. Talk a little bit about Celestial Fu and what makes her such a terrific sort of hypno-villainess.
Well, the thing that I think that makes Celestial Fu really strong beyond just, I mean, I could just say hotness and leave it at that, and like it would work for a certain degree, but that's not really fair.
Yes.
Celestial Fu is a terrifying character.
Yeah.
She is. Eye of Serpent plays up the exotic element without. There's a certain way, especially given some of. I like a lot of classic literature, a lot of classic film, which comes through very brilliantly. There's a lot of allusions to a very black and white aesthetic, and this could
Yeah.
have been done really offensively. Like I've read this done very offensively,
Right.
but Celestial Fu isn't your long needled. She's not something that Big Trouble in Little China is parodying that that's all people can make. It's
Yeah.
very much not that. She's not human, but she's not Asian not human. Though this takes place in Hong Kong and it very much is of that element. She's a character that takes people and either largely has her servants do it because she's got this. We've already seen Corel de Amber keeps servants. Like there's
Yes.
no other way to put it. They're people that are very loyal to her.
Right.
And
Even if they
later,
don't necessarily it's interesting because they almost kind of consider themselves like her entourage
yes,
because some of them have more or and less awareness of Coral's nature and the nature of their relationship with Coral.
yes, and like if you told Doris, for example, that she was at all a servant to I,
Yeah.
or not to I, sorry, to Corel. I don't mean to say
Wait.
the same
Is
person.
there an application process for this or?
No, that if I could like train under the grate, no, sorry.
Yes.
But the it's not that. Like Corel is we see the way that an ancient can adapt to the modern world, can service people, can work with people.
Right.
And then in Celestial Fu, we see how an ancient can carve herself into the ground and turn everyone around her into abject servants,
Yes.
just filling people's bodies with needles, particularly with golden needles,
Yeah.
put into the ear and then clipped, leaving like just a little bit of gold visible.
It's a brilliant idea. I don't know where the letter, don't know where the person, uh, developed the idea for this, but the needle dance is the ritual which at first you're not exactly sure what its purpose is. Is it the first time you see it, it's being used against a character that you haven't met before, Mr. James, who is a very savvy character, and as you come to realize, he is an agent of Salamander, who is another of the ancients, who goes by a German alias, Mister.
Furmacher or
Yeah,
Furmacher. I probably butchered it, but that's at least how it sounds.
right. But anyway, Mr. James is an agent of the Salamander, another ancient, and Celestial Fu considers herself the greatest of all ancients, and so this means no never mind to her. Anyway, so Mr. James is captured, and not at all he's not at all worried because he feels very comfortable with the safeguards that are in place and that people are going to be coming and looking for him and so on and so forth. And so they begin the needle dance, as the ritual is known. And so these silver acupuncture needles start going into his body in various places, placed there by Celestial Fu's apprentice, I love. He always addresses her as honored patron.
Yes.
He always refers to his master. Anyway, so he's placing these silver acupuncture needles, and you're not at first sure is this an instrument of torture? Is this meant to do whatever? And in time, you begin to realize that they're the idea is that they're putting in the acupuncture needles and that they're going to somehow they're going to kind of short circuit his will and interrogate him so that he'll answer their questions. And so you kind of get that idea, you have that expectation, and then it gets to the part that you're describing where Celestial Fu comes in herself, and now there's some gold needles, and the gold needles, she kind of contemplates where the needles are going to go, and I can't remember how many needles Mr. James gets. There's just some great words about how many steps into the needle dance a person can withstand.
Yeah.
Mr. James gets, I can't remember. Let's say it's
I want to
100.
say, yeah.
100 steps into the dance, and which may be good or bad for a mortal. Who knows? But that
52 steps.
52
52 is what he
steps.
got up to before she comes in.
Okay, so 52 steps into the dance. So then she has this one gold needle, and I love the way that I describes how Celestial Fu rubs it in her fingers to warm it up before she jams it through the outer part of his ear, and she asks him to sing. And I think what is he given a rendition of "God Save the Queen," right? Because he's
Yes.
British, and so as he's singing, as you described, she's clipping off the ends of this needle. So the needle is still in place in terms of what is contacting his ear. She has pierced his ear with this needle, and then she clips off the ends so that that one bit of the needle is embedded in his ear. And as he gets to the end of this song, she asks if he's married. He says no, and she says, "But of course you are now to me." And I love the way that I writes his reaction. He's like, "Oh, of course. You know, how could I have forgotten that? Of course, you're my bride, and I worship you, and I am your servant." And then she has him service her, and it's really, really spectacularly hot. Oh, and that's where you find out that she's not human. She
Yes.
pulls that green robe off her shoulders, and she's got four. They're described as slight breasts with very erect nipples.
Yes.
A disturbing and arousing image.
Definitely beats 3.
So that's the introduction to Celestial Fu. And I can't remember, do we see much of Heather's enslavement?
I believe we do. I think that's in. Let's see, because that starts out with dance,
Yeah,
and
then
then it
needle
goes
porous and
on.
then needle blinding.
Needle blinding is specifically Jesby. Let's see here. Double checking. Because
Anyway,
chorus and binding have Jesby in it. So
right. And I can't remember how much but the point is that very cleverly, she shows us this process in completion with Mr. James. Like, at the end of that book, you totally understand what the needle dance is and what its purpose is, and and what happens to the people who endure the needle dance. They become the living slaves of Celestial Fu and her, basically her sex pets. So from there, we kind of cut away, as it were, and we see this character Heather Jesby. And I'm almost thinking that when we see Heather, there's already some weird thoughts in her head that that we're kind of peeking in on.
yeah,
That she is an instrument of Celestial Fu who has been sent to kill Coral de Amber. That's kind of how we meet her, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah, with the briefcase.
Right. And
And
there's that. Yeah,
unfortunately,
go ahead, because that's a great bit of misdirection.
yeah, we've already at this point. There's already been 3 attempts, I want to say, on Carell's life,
Yeah.
and they've all been linked to the salamander. And in fact, I don't think James was the one that was in the Dangerous series, but you can almost sort of see that the people that were sent before very easily could have been. There's no reason to believe the salamander's involved in this at all, as is later confirmed.
Right.
And Carell gets to save Heather's life from killing her with this box or with this briefcase with a bomb inside, and then they get to bond, which is all the better for her to then be used against Carell, who is very trusting of the people she takes care of, because why would they do anything to her? She's setting them free, with certain exceptions that she's aware of will happen if she sets them free.
Right.
But there's no reason for her to be afraid of them.
No, and it's sort of a double blind. It's really, really a great turn. It reminds me a little bit of that Trilby story with the like the Professor Rasputin character.
Yes.
It reminds me a little bit of that story, but there's that Celestial Fu has essentially programmed Heather to. Heather is, in fact, she is in life a tech journalist, and
Yes.
she's been enslaved by Celestial Fu. So now she's going to interview Coral de Amber, who is this big giant in tech finance and venture capital and so forth. And so during the meeting, Celestial Fu is seeing that Heather's brain has been toyed with, and she knows that something's up, and so she takes control of Heather. She lifts the eye patch, reveals the eye of the serpent, takes control of Heather, and then Evelyn, her bodyguard, is like, she grabs the tape recorder off the desk and douses it in water, thinking that the tape recorder is the bomb. And then it slowly unravels, and Coral is figuring it out more and more. And then eventually they hit upon, oh, it's the briefcase. It's the briefcase. And Coral, the three of them, like again, Evelyn grabs a briefcase. I think she dumps it in a bathtub, something like that. But they douse it in water, and then the three of them basically wind up in a pile on the floor, kind of huddling when the bomb does go off.
Yeah.
But they all survive, and at that point, Coral has set Heather free, in air quotes. Heather's completed her assignment for Celestial Fu, and Coral has kind of freed her from that obligation. Or so you think. And then it's terrific because it seems like Heather is embedded with Coral for at least, I mean, for weeks. I don't know if it gives us the exact time frame, but for weeks, Heather is, Coral's. She's her new favorite pet,
Yeah.
and so it comes as quite the shock when one day after they've been having sexy fun time, that out comes a hypodermic needle, and Heather manages to sneak up and drug the serpent. The seemingly impossible.
And just before then, Carell notices the bit of gold, but is like, there's like
Right.
a little post in your ear. Did you already have this? Yeah, of course I already had this.
Yeah, of course. I already had, and of course you know what the metal post means, having seen the process used on Mr. James. So then the hypodermic needle into the butt, and suddenly the serpent has been captured, and Heather calls a phone number, and some nefarious folks come to the house to collect the now paralyzed Coral de Amber. Oh, and there's that that wonderful / terrible instruction Celestial Fu gives Heather to masturbate on Coral's face.
Yeah, tie her up, because you love tying women up.
Yes.
And then masturbate on her face. It needs to be dripping with your juices.
That's right. And she cannot stop until she comes, and she can't come because she hates being watched by the men that Celestial Fu has sent to collect Coral de Amber. And so it's this really kind of torturous process that she says it takes her over an hour to orgasm. But it's like those kinds of, like, it's that sinister, naughty stuff that Eye does so very well.
The more and more I thought about it, and as I was going through the later works, it's more honest than a lot of people's stuff with how a world with this kind of stuff in it would work. It doesn't turn away from the fact that if you're the sort of person that can just go around controlling people however you want, if you don't need that person, you're just going to shoot them. People don't matter anymore if you're the certain level of sociopathy where people are objects, fuck toys, or dead. There's no other option for you. And I managed to make any of those things happening just dripping with heat, and just this twisted wrongness to them while making. It's not the kind of story where it's just like anyone's going to die at any moment or anything like that. But you
Right.
don't have the feeling that this is being candy coated. This isn't made gentler so you can masturbate to it. You're
No.
masturbating to it because it's more messed up.
Yeah. Honestly, I mean that is exactly it. And sort of the depths of Celestial Fu's, it's not madness. I mean, she's not mad. She's just,
She has a very reasoned like goal for all
yeah,
of it.
she's just
She's
utterly corrupt. As you're
yes,
describing, she's just utterly corrupt from the immense power she wields. And when she captures Coral de Amber, and I does a great thing where we know that Coral's been captured, and so beginning the next trilogy, which is the Tapestry trilogy, what do? We immediately cut away to a character we've never met before, and we
a
spend.
character we've never met before being in a sexual encounter with a character we know even less about.
That's right, but they have some pretty steamy sex on the balcony. And Tapestry is kind of a, she's kind of a fortune teller among the ancients. She is an ancient herself, and she has this sort of ability to. I mean, well, she's using tarot cards, and she's
Yeah,
she's divining the events that are transpiring around her, and she knows that something is coming up, and we get the idea that she's been in this situation before, and that she should leave it alone and just watch from the sidelines, but she can't quite do it.
because she knows if she interjects, she's going to die.
Right.
We've seen before, like the way ancients work is very like we're still at this point, and I would argue that just and this isn't much of a spoiler. Like I does a good job of telling you things without making you never feel like you could go out there and if you were a genetic engineer create an ancient or anything like that. You don't know all the rules because it's not important for you as a mortal to know if you could even understand. It's not how this works. But Carell's stuff works very solidly. Celestial Fu stuff works very solidly. We don't know what Salamander can do, but it's apparently scary enough you don't want to mess with him.
Right.
So Tapestry knowing she's going to die is serious, and then she's saying, "No, I'm not going to get involved. I'm not going to get involved. Not going to get involved. Let's have more sex." Fuck it. I can't let this happen because this is bad.
Yeah.
Which, looking back later, it's sort of there's a question of would things have gotten this bad without this? But I also can't care because I care about Carell too much. So
Right.
this is the right call.
Well, and also it's interesting the way that we only know Celestial Fu as Celestial Fu, but in Tapestry's tarot card reading, it's revealed that just as Coral de Amber is known as the Serpent, Celestial Fu is known as the Horror, and it's a really interesting and evocative title. Um,
Yes.
in the tarot reading, she's known as, she's represented by the Devil card,
Yes.
and I think that the Horror is a much spookier and kind of it's even more vague and non-specific, and yet even kind of spookier than calling someone the devil, which is perhaps a little cliche.
Yeah. At this point, you really can't get away with that unless it's like ironic or something. Like
Right.
a nice person being called that would be more amusing than a villain. It would just be, of
Exactly.
course.
It's just overdone. So the Horror is a really terrific bit of business, and it gives us some clue as to what we're dealing with beyond what we already know firsthand about Celestial Fu. And so it is from that standpoint. It is from the standpoint of whatever is going on, which we know at this point that Celestial Fu has kidnapped Coral de Amber. We know that there's a duel in the mix. We know that other people are watching, other people are interested in what is happening. And so it is with this updated sort of view on the world and the world of the ancients and all that that we come back to Coral de Amber strapped very securely into a now familiar X frame, getting ready to begin the needle dance. And again, just brilliant structure. In terms of writing craft, the structure is brilliant because I has shown us this process play out in its entirety we know exactly what is intended to happen, but we also know that Coral to Amber is a very formidable opponent. And so it immediately creates this tremendous feeling of tension and anxiety and anticipation for what is going to happen. Really, really good stuff.
Yeah, and as opposed to before, where it's been, oh, this many steps of the dance, and then we'll throw out a couple of gold just because that's how, because as we see, it's the golden voice that they hear, which
Right.
implies that she's reaching through her power, speaking through that.
Yes.
And Carell gets up to over 1,300, and that's including a bunch of golden needles. Like, she doesn't just get one, it's
A
they come with, let's
bunch.
see, what was it exactly? It was, yeah, coming there and just there's a tray of golden needles. And that's not the first tray. It's a new tray of golden needles.
Right.
And even after that, she's still, we're at 1,391 steps in the dance by my count. Eat me. And
Eat
she's
me.
still that defiant after
Right.
all of that. But there's only so much more she can do once herself is basically being squeezed away.
Yeah, I love the way that in the version with Coral, because we're seeing it, we're getting a little bit of her insight into what's happening, and you realize that the Great River, which is essentially the Force, but the power that the ancients draw upon, that makes them, their ability to tap into this is what makes them who they are,
Yes.
and the river flows through them, and Coral realizes that the needles, we know kind of what happens to Mr. James. We don't really understand the mechanics, and Coral understands the mechanics. She understands that the needles are disrupting the flow of the river through her. And we were talking about this a little bit the other night. I have to tell you that the first time I read this, I fully expected that there was going to be some sort of James Bond like escape mechanism. Coral was going to suddenly reveal that she'd been faking it, or that she had some brilliant forethought and had devised a plan to address this exact situation, and suddenly her entourage storms the complex and rescues her, something like that. But I
Yeah.
knew that Coral de Amber was not going to succumb to this. And so the moment where Celestial Fu, as she did with Mr. James, asks Coral if she sings, and Coral says yes. And Celestial Fu requests, she says, sing something silly for me, won't you? Something like that.
Yeah. Would you sing something silly for me?
And Coral resists and says, at this point, during Mr. James' needle dance, at this point, you kind of sense that she had him. And with Coral, saying, I'm not silly. I'm not going to sing something silly. You sense that resistance, and it gives you this sense of hope. And then I think Celestial Fu suggests, well, we'll just sing a children's song then, and Coral settles on Mary Had a Little Lamb. And at some point, and it's describing Celestial Fu, clipping off both ends of the needle, and then at some point, she interrupts Coral singing and says, "Are you married?" And Coral says, "No." If you've got the text in front of you, read it, because it's a
Yeah.
great,
As
it's a
of
great bit.
now, you are married to me, young one, until death do us part.
And you're like, "Oh no, it's
And
not going to happen. It's not going to happen," and it totally happens.
it's so beautiful
It
and tragic.
it's beautiful and tragic and hot. And she, just as with Mr. James, she commands, after she frees, and I think they say it takes about a half hour to get all the needles out.
It's 1,433 steps, which I don't think includes the one that stays embedded. So it's
Right.
1,433 individual needles.
And so they takes like a half hour, pull all the needles out, get her extricated from the X frame, and then at that point, she commands Coral to service her, and the description of, of this kind of porcelain skin, and Coral being aroused by the non-human features, the four breasts and everything, the strangeness of Celestial Fu's body, and then um, the way that that Coral just ravishes Celestial Fu, presses her face between her legs and services her bride, and as she is doing, the Celestial Fu is telling her that you're now my slave, you're my favorite courtesan, and or courtesan. And there's a great moment where, and just as with Mr. James, Celestial Fu commands Coral to masturbate. Take your own petals in your hands. You will always spill your cum on the floor when you service me in this manner, or something like that. It's a great line.
Yes. You always spill your cum. You always spill your own cum like this when you service me.
Yeah, and which Coral does enthusiastically.
Oh yes.
I love where she gives her the name Petal Lick. Celestial Fu says, "You're my favorite petal licker," and as the idea occurs to her, oh, and that will be your name, Petal Lick. And I love the description as Coral smiles and nods as she is eagerly tonguing Celestial Fu's sex.
Yeah.
And there's a terrific bit towards the end where Celestial Fu asks her, she names her, "You're my favorite courtesan," and she says, do you know the meaning of the word? Do you know what a courtesan is? And Coral rattles off the equivalent
Hetera,
word in several,
concubine. Could like I can't pronounce half of these. I'm
yeah,
not even gonna
but
try.
in several different languages. Concubina. There's a French one, a Spanish one, a couple of other things, and then the last two, prostitute, whore, is the final one. And then they have that great exchange in French, which I used Google Translate on, and and effectively, it's Celestial Fu saying that, you, my small prostitute, are going to be, like my favorite little toy or whatever. And it's Coral committing herself to Celestial Fu as her slave until the stars burn out.
Which is so beautiful. Like in French or English, it's just gorgeous.
It is. It's and this. I don't know if this is as much a thing for you as it is for me, and this is what we were talking about the other night. I have a serious thing for this broken dom fetish,
No, it's great.
and this story and then Trilby's Bond are sort of the two that gave this to me. Like, I kind of have this hang up because of these two stories. And this scene is because everything we know about Coral and how amazing and powerful and dangerous she is, and to see her broken and enslaved by Celestial Fu, it's potent.
Hmm. It definitely is. There's just she goes from being so defiant, so she has this way she lives her life, and she refuses to be repentant for it at any time. To I'm your happy little whore, and just like that.
Just like
And
that.
there's no you can't even imagine there's any way back for her, which is just heartbreaking because at this point in the series, like I can't imagine having gotten to it without having fallen in love with Corral. It's just impossible. She's
I,
just too lovable.
I agree. What's interesting to me is that there's kind of a conflict, or actually there's a moment of that's a little ambiguous to me when Celestial Fu first places the needle in Coral's ear, which is really the final step of the dance. That's the thing that allows Celestial Fu's golden voice to take over Coral's mind. There's a moment where Celestial Fu she's telling her that you're my bride, and she says something else. She says something about you will never again have to worry about making the wrong decisions
Yes.
because they'll all be the right decisions. They'll all be the right decisions because they'll be my decisions. You'll have no decisions. And there's a kind of an ambiguous moment where it describes a tear rolling out of Coral's right eye, the one that's not covered up.
Yeah.
And like when I first read that line, it sort of comes across as Coral crying for what she knows she's losing. Her sense of self, that she's becoming a slave, and this tears in relation to that. But later on, particularly during the aftermath of this event, it is interesting because it seems as though, as Celestial Fu's slave, Coral really does experience peace, maybe for the first time in her life. That she really
Given,
has no worries.
because she's had like she's the last of her kind.
Right.
It's like she's the serpent now, but many times it's referred to that there were other serpents. There was a lot of every bloodline is the best way I would phrase it. I know that
all
they
of
have a
these
better word,
characters came from clans, but they're
which
all the last of their clans.
Celestial Fu is the last of her clan because she killed the last of hers intentionally.
Yes.
Which she claims to feel some regret for still, but you imagine that's the same sort of regret you feel when it's like, I could have killed them later, or maybe I didn't have to kill them like that. It's not so much that you feel like there's any actual moral
Remorse.
quandary. Maybe I'm lonely. Maybe I should have just taken off their arms and legs and thrown them in the corner.
Right.
I mean, maybe the head would be fine. Maybe I should have had them stuffed. More than any actual.
Yeah,
as mentioned, like Corell's a monster. But Celestial Fu is the monster that we don't want to identify with.
very true. Very true. Coral's that sort of Dracula-like monster. That that monster that is just relatable enough that we're intrigued. Celestial Fu is something else entirely. The so obviously, at some point Coral gets free. But there's a really interesting scene that follows with Heather, who is the journalist that betrayed Coral. Heather, now that she's accomplished her mission, Celestial Fu has no use for her. And in Celestial Fu's world, as you were saying, either you're useful, you're entertaining, or you're dead.
Exactly.
And Heather she's not especially entertaining now that Celestial Fu has Coral de Amber on her leash, and she's not useful anymore either. So the end is coming. And there's that scene where Coral, now fully engulfed in this role as Petal Lick, approaches Heather and basically just says, "Would you like to have some fun sex?" And Coral is pierced her skin is pierced in all these places with these bells, and each bell, like the number of bells she has, is directly proportional to her skill in bed. And so to have this many bells speaks to her incredible sexual prowess. And the way that she is so content in this role, it's really interesting because later on, after, there's a big rescue operation. And, of course, Tapestry gets involved, and Tapestry's intel is kind of how the big operation occurs. And she gets Salamander involved, and, it's a big thing. There's commandos, and, machine gun fire and that kind of stuff. But it's really interesting in that, in the aftermath of all of this stuff, after Coral's been rescued, after she's been freed from Celestial Fu's control, she's having nightmares. She's got PTSD dealing with the situation. And there's a really interesting scene. It's one of those sort of montage scenes that Eye is so terrific at writing, where it's just like this sort of flashes of imagery and ideas and things like that. And in one of those that Coral is having, she flashes back to being Petal Lick. And I can't remember exactly what the text is, but it's something, she's remembering that time, and she's remembering, like, Petal Lick, whore, contentment, and then it flashes on to like the next series of images or whatever. But it's really interesting that in the aftermath of all that, that there's a hint that at least part of Coral de Amber looks back on this period and remembers being content.
Which is just it's so sad for a character that's so strong to need that to be able to have had a moment of calm. And as we learn as the events continue, I mean, her capture was entirely to learn how to use her as a weapon. As
Yes.
we see more of the allusions to, if you haven't figured out by now as a reader, that the serpent is a gorgon, or somehow the stories of that. When we get the story of, you can just eventually just cut off her head; it'll work for at least a week.
Right.
Which goes right back to
back to Perseus.
And the whole purpose of capturing her was to try and figure out how that eye taps into the Great River, and the references before to the EM weapon that the salamander in quotes was developing.
Yeah.
And it all wraps back around in this celestial Fu has been trying to use technology to turn the river into a weapon. Carell's been trying to use that same technology through Polycorp, which, by the way, a polyamorous woman with a tech company named Polycorp. I can't help but adore it.
Come on.
But she's built this up to try and figure out. We don't get exactly what she's trying to get from it because she doesn't say, because it's, as far as she's concerned at this point, everything's a failure. That Celestial Fu was able to get her, that she wasn't able to complete her goals in time. Her whole life's work as Carell de Amber was a failure.
Right.
And she's just done with it. But clearly it was a much more positive use, or at least not literally a gun.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed to me that she was seeking some sort of understanding of her own nature, something that she could not deduce herself, that she was hoping that science would be able to tell her something about herself that she didn't know. And I have to be honest with you, what I imagine Coral wanted was a way to take it out of her, that she was looking for a way to not be an ancient anymore.
It does seem a lot like she was trying to become the way she'd been building up the humans around her, and then when it all drops apart, it's very much a rejection of the humanity she's built up.
Yes.
Because she can't have it now.
Right. And I think that was what she was striving for. She was trying to find some way to detach herself from the river to become mortal and to just have mortal problems and a mortal life and live and die and finally be at peace, rather than sort of endure eternity in conflict and all that. That's sort of the tragic romantic version that I imagine.
I don't see anything in the text that disputes it. And then that brings together all the more tragedy of how she's setting Doris up to become I believe it's called kinspawn.
Yeah, kinspawn.
To become as close to an ancient as a mortal with a touch of the river in them, more connected to the little river, which seems to be more just powered directly by sex.
Yes, it is. The little river is what Athena uses when she destroys the carnivorous plant.
Yes, that is exactly it. As opposed to the great river behind her friend's eye.
Right.
And
it's sort of a demigod. Essentially, you're talking about sort of infusing a mortal with something of the divine. Essentially, kinspawn is, in my mind, it's equivalent to a demigod.
And you when you complete a dance against an ancient as one, and you're basically seen as you're no longer just a mortal to be screwed with. Doesn't mean you can't be, still treated horribly in other ways, but there's a certain level of respect. And there's a line that I needed to make sure I didn't leave out of the end of that series because it was just so great. The series starts out with Doris being just completely broken and humiliated, and having to be able to be both broken and rise up and say no. Before then, she's trained in how to actually use anything beyond just, falling into horrible despair.
Right.
And the person that's used to break her is forced to be her assistant. Which is as much of a detriment as a help.
It is. They have a very tense relationship. Doris and is it Betsy? What's her name?
because of
Bess.
her obsession with cows.
Because of her obsession with cows, and Bess has got something of a Hugh cow fetish, and it's delicious.
And there's this line that she gives at the end once they finally completed everything, because using the information about how the river and EM fields and everything to just basically walk over what should kill them, Bess frowned. I don't get to kill anyone. That completely floors me. Happy fucking ending.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just, it comes back to that whole that even amidst all this horror and tragedy and sorrow and hotness, it is punchy and hilarious.
It
Like, I
is.
mean, I don't mean to say that in like in a degrading way, but
No,
there's some hilarious lines in here.
it's really entertaining. I want to talk a little bit about that episode because Coral does a lot of strange things after she comes back from being Celestial Foo's slave. And if you'd like to go ahead and read ahead, I'll give you this slight spoiler warning. She gets revenge.
Yes!
The revenge. It's coming.
So good.
But in the aftermath, Coral does a lot of strange kinds of things that seem out of character for her, and the people around her notice. And Doris, going through this humiliating sort of training period with Bess, and then eventually tutelage under Coral herself in the pursuit of becoming kinspawn. The final gauntlet, as it were, the dance that you refer to, is a really interesting contest in which I'm trying to remember the particulars are Doris and her now assistant Bess have to go to a mall. They have to walk from one side to the other, spend $5,000,
Yes.
reach the other side of the mall, get in the limousine that'll be waiting for them without being arrested, being flagged on any watch list, without creating a spectacle, that kind of, like, basically they have to get from one end of the mall to the other, spend $5,000, and they can't be accosted or arrested, that kind of thing. And when you read it, you kind of think, what is the challenge exactly? But it's like this, like, but of course Coral has had weeks to kind of prepare. And so it is this remarkable gauntlet of challenges and all these kind of hidden traps and things that that they have to navigate, and all of it is very it's very spicy stuff. I mean, it's some really, really intensely erotic ideas, and it's kind of a grab bag of just all sorts of different sort of fetishy stuff, and it's great. I'm going to talk about sort of my favorite thing, but was there anything from that really sticks out at you as being particularly hot or memorable?
It's a thing that like might not necessarily be super hot because I don't have a thing for this per se. I don't want to come off as that. It's just that
Yeah,
when you bring something up, there's always going to be a question. Why did you think of that? But there's the things that you pay attention to when you're in a story like this, and there's the things that you don't. And similarly, as a reader, you're taught to ignore certain things in an erotic story because you know they won't come into play, at
right.
least given where you're reading them. And one thing is that if you read on the archive, you know that you're not going to get anything randomly with kids throwing out, which is not a bad thing. I have no complaints about that.
All right.
So the little girl walks up to her and jabs her in the leg with a needle, and then she's about to get super angry. Corell even corrupted this little kid. She didn't even have to. Like, there's no like horrible corruption. There's no like the river didn't like burn through her or anything. She basically just gently suggested that she go over there and jab her in the leg. And she's just a little girl. Like, I mean, children can be incredibly amoral when they're nudged in just the right way. And now she's struggling with being horribly drugged for the rest of this because, of course, you ignore the little kid. Corell's not going to mess with a kid. She's not a mom. Oh, wait. Yes, she is.
Yes.
But so are we.
Yeah, that's a very memorable moment. Of course, it ends up being a very insidious kind of trap because Doris assumes that the drug is meant to incapacitate her, but in fact, it is an aphrodisiac, and Doris thinks she hits upon the idea of, oh well, I'll tap into the little river, which is basically the sexy fun time river of power. I'll tap into that to do what I need to do, not realizing that this is an aphrodisiac, and so she is essentially setting herself up for a real challenge.
As basically every time she reaches out to her power, oh, I'm getting hotter. Oh, wait, this is bad.
That's
This is
right.
bad.
Because then she kind of stops. She wants to sort of stop doing the challenge and just masturbate or have sex or whatever. There's a great episode with 3 naked women in fur coats in a dressing room in a high-end clothing store. That's quite fun. But I think the thing that's a real standout for me, and I don't know why really. It's not anything that I've ever thought of before as being particularly hot, but at some point, Doris sees a woman. She maybe even exchanges a word or two with her. I can't remember, but she sees a woman who is dressed essentially like Doris's fantasy whore, I guess.
Yes.
And it describes this, long fashion model, like long legs, tall fashion model feature kind of woman with black skirt, black sheer top, gold, sort of, gold highlight makeup, like gold, like sort of like in the eyeshadow, golden hair, golden sandals. So that this kind of color combination, black, gold. And she sees this woman, and Doris immediately, because this woman has stepped straight out of her fantasies, she immediately recognizes the danger and beelines out of there. But then later, after she's discovered the trap with the aphrodisiac injected into her, and how every time she tries to access her power, it just makes her hotter and more difficult to concentrate and more difficult to remember why she should fight any of these sexual traps and try to win the contest. As she's in the midst,
she wins.
if she loses, she wins too, and so do we. But in the midst of all that, they're trying to kind of make their way out of, some sort of department store in the mall and get to the exit. And they go past, like a Clinique counter or something like that, but some sort of, like little makeup area. And there's 4 of these women there. And she looks over and she sees them, and one of them winks at her. Orgasm. One of them walks over to her with a little golden tube of lipstick, puts it in her hand and says, "You should try it." Orgasm. Another one comes over to her with a pair of the same golden high-heeled sandals that they're all wearing, says, "Put these on." Orgasm. And it's like just this devastating sort of this devastating situation, just overwhelming her, feeding like her greatest fantasies back into her. And she should not come out on the other side of this. It's everything that her fantasy mind has ever wanted, her fantasy imagination has ever dreamed up. And she reaches down, she pulls off her shoes, she puts on the golden sandals. I mean, she's going, she is going there. And she kind of gets pulled back from the precipice at the last possible moment, only to find that Bess is kind of going through the exact same thing outside. There's a group of children that are teasing her. Coral has just put them up to say, "Go over to that woman and just say moo." And so there's this group of children pointing at Bess and just chanting moo, moo. And Bess, who has a hue-cow fetish, is also wearing a fur coat with nothing underneath. And she's not going to last very long without peeling the coat out and having a go at herself, which of course would lose them the contest. So
yes, and they almost still lose it because of it's still, there's a little bit of a question of the security guards that went after her. Were they actually security guards? Did that, because Carell doesn't even bring it up. That's not even a thing. So clearly it didn't matter. But it's so. I remember I first read the Petal series before any other revised work when I was still like quite a young author and not really, maybe even before I'd actually written anything, and completely no context. And it was just this weird, bizarre. Oh, what's the word for it? I don't know what you would call that genre off the top of my head. I know that it's got a very common name. Just this weird, bizarre, magical fantasy story in this mall as this climax. And it took me years to because I didn't get around to actually reading it for a lot longer than I should have. And just stuck with me as this bizarre. This was hot. This was twisted. what the heck even happened here? But it
Yeah.
never left my head. I never forgot
What's
these
the
3
point of it
stories
all?
named Petal.
Yeah. And that's the thing. You really do have to read everything up to that point to really understand the significance, to understand the why of it all. I mean, you can, in some ways, like if you just read the story as a one-off, it would seem like the most bizarre, self-indulgent sort of, fantasy tripe that, that you could read. It just seems like somebody, it's, okay, so some mind control author went to the mall and just tried to find a way to work in all their fantasies into a trip to the mall. That's what the story is. But it's so much deeper than that. It's so connected to the mythology. Like you have to understand. You have to understand Coral enough to really understand how she thinks and how insidious she is, how merciless she can be. You have to understand Celestial Fu and why she is so dangerous, because that sort of the specter of her presence is in that story as well. There's all kinds of little ties and things. It's a seemingly, I don't want to say it's a silly story, but it's seemingly kind of a casual fun story, but it does have pretty deep roots.
And then, of course, it's followed up by, like, perhaps the most just gut-wrenching story in, like, just anything on the archive, maybe? Like,
Yeah,
it doesn't seem like it at first, but Unfinished Works in a Forever Afternoon, and if you haven't read this, like, just pause and read it. It's not that long, and it's really good.
it is.
Is just like Thrall even recommends that you can even start here. And it's only 3,000 words, just about. So it's a perfect point to be, hey, this all sounds interesting. Let's read this and pause and then come back. Where you get to there's spoken about a lot of further back was the fact that if Doris screwed up the dance, she would be dead one way or another. She'd be Gula, or she'd be dead, or there's no going back from that. You
Right.
don't succeed in becoming kinspawn, you're done. And there's even a little exchange with, would you like to know how the others died? And she just goes, will that change anything if I'm dead? No.
No.
So that it never brought up. But Carell goes to visit an old friend that has never been brought up before,
Yep.
Marjorie de Chalice, or de Chalis, or however you pronounce the name. I feel so terrible. She chooses such great names, and I can't.
I never studied French, so I'm thoroughly disadvantaged.
Exactly. I mean, my French only disadvantages me more because I remember just enough to get it all wrong. And we see this great reunion with this friend of hers that's just showing her, oh look, I wasn't all that great before, but look at what I can do with my maid, and look at what I can do with these simple objects.
Yeah.
It's very much the, hey, look, I became a Jedi while you were gone. I can totally just do whatever I want. It's
Right.
great. I'm amazing. I can go now. I can be with you. And this just wrecked Carell saying she can't, and that she loves her and she misses her, but she can't. And it just rips you apart. Oh, just that ending is just like I
It's
love it,
heart-wrenching.
but it's so horrible.
Well, and but that's the thing, it's that bittersweet kind of drama that is so very effective. And in this case, like you say, I mean, Coral warns Doris that she's done this 4 times before, or she's attempted it and has never succeeded. And in Coral's words, the last time she doesn't feel like she really even got all that close. And you don't realize it until kind of the very end that you're realizing that you're reading the story of one of these other 4. You're you're kind of reaching back into the past and seeing what became of one of these other candidates.
And she's not dead, but it's worse because she's trapped in this. It's a rather lovely dream,
Yeah,
but she's stuck there, and she misses Carell with all of her being, as we've seen that you can't be affected by Carell and not need her,
right.
and she can't have her because Carell's alive
You
and living,
never get
and
over it.
she's trapped.
It is. I mean, it's really, really fantastic writing from a really, really fantastic writer.
Yes, it's the kind of story where if this was like your first story on the archive, for example, you'd feel like you went to the wrong website because there's elements of things here and there. But like one of the things that stands out perhaps about Eye's work is that there's not necessarily a clear. You're not necessarily going to get a spot. This is where the mind control happens. This is where this happens. This is where this, and it happens. I'm not going to say that never happens,
Right.
especially with you've got the serpent eye flicking up.
But don't expect
But
it.
yeah, it's just this whole story is this psychedelic mind trip. This who knows when anyone is in control of themselves or someone else, and it's beautiful. It's you never question, oh, would Simon say this was MC or not? Because I mean, you'll see writers saying, a story was rejected for not having enough mind control. You never question if you're reading these stories that they have enough mind control in there. But if you were hard pressed to say, now where exactly was the mind control in this in some places, you might blink. But you know it's there. You can feel it. It pervades the entire story
Yeah,
because it's in the bones of
it's true, and I think that the we talk a lot about the authors that we love and world building
it.
and
Yes.
how fun that is to do. How fun it is to kind of dream up mythology and the threads that connect all these things and the whys and the backstories of these characters and the history and all that. I mean, it's enormously fun to kind of get out the Lego and just build these worlds around your characters.
Yes.
But um, what I achieved, the writer, what Eye of Serpent achieved in the first cycle, the first stories that she wrote, is a mythology that is it's so vague in one sense, in how little you understand because you don't really need to understand it for the to enjoy the story. In some ways it's very vague, and yet it's so rich and so dense. It invites your imagination to kind of go there and just dream up some of these other details and things that you're not getting a clear look at, but that you can see in the periphery of your vision.
It's just so good.
It
And there were other I'm so jealous of the authors that were writing during the time of this series because if you scroll past the second series, there's other tales of the ancients where you have Cat Slave, for example, Blank
Iago,
Page,
Blank
yeah,
Page,
Dark Song, that all got to weave into this.
yeah,
And even if an unrelated series, but Tabico wrote with Eye on the story Bitch,
right, which
wherein
featured
I provided voice.
how did you provide voice for this? Tell me the story.
I of Serpent provided the voice of a character. That is a great thing about the way this works so much. My apologies. I think in text, so it makes this turn
Yeah, but
sometimes.
yeah, I have obviously Dr. Bell Simon, I's character,
Yes,
makes a fun appearance in Bitch. Um, it's just it's really amazing to me to think about the very first Coral de Amber story, the story about Coral and the three wives of the businessman she's dealing with at the dinner in the restaurant, and the the mechanic of the kind of the repetitive, the trip to the bathroom, the eye patch coming off, and everyone getting sort of progressively more slutty as the evening goes on. The simplicity of that story, the sort of the mechanics of its structure and all of that. I don't think you have any inkling of how wide a view you're going to have of how deep and rich the mythology is going to be, of how connected to the characters you're going to feel by the time you get to the end of the first cycle. It's such a dramatic evolution,
it really is.
and it is literally just part one of the masterpiece that is Eye of Serpent's collective work.
So,
We salute you.
yeah, seriously. And then of course, we can't get out of here without the Carell promised that she would shit on Celestial Foosbones.
Yep.
A very evocative promise.
Does Coral de Amber strike you as the kind of person that keeps her promises?
I would say to a fault.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I'm there.
The,
So
the kind
tell
of
me what
person that
what happens?
well, we get a very one of the things that Eye's really great at is that storytelling where lots of things are happening and you can tell it's important, but you have no clue.
Yeah.
You're just like there's no like even going back through like you can't tell yourself, oh, of course I should have known because of that. Like you could say that to yourself, but you know you're lying. You could not have figured that out. But it's not you're not expected to. It's not the aha, you were dumb. It's the this is what you didn't know yet. As Carell is finishing up business, she's been wrapping up her life, getting affairs in order, and going over to Hong Kong with a box. And basically, all we really see for that entire trip is just they watch some stuff and they leave. There's no interaction. There's no vengeance. There's no bones. There's nothing. It's mostly her spending quality time with Evelyn, which is really touching.
Yeah.
And
Especially
really
considering what's about to happen.
Yeah, and then Celestial Fu's assistant takes her arms off at the elbows,
Yep.
needle dances her, and uses her to kill the other ancient that was also helping him betray Celestial Fu,
The Shadow Master,
who gets further development and so forth. So to bite my tongue a bit,
yeah.
but this guy who's just been throwing needles into people, being mocked by everyone else that sat in that, not chair, but been on that X-frame, has this broken Celestial Fu, who he renames River Slut, as just this limb, like the description of her limbs gets continually the same in the later stories, but just her arms just end at the elbow, and there's just nothing past. And she just becomes this completely gone servant of a character that before she didn't look down most, but as is very quickly revealed, he was basically supposed to be going towards Quinn Spawn, but she had no intention of doing it.
Yeah, she was just using him, just exploiting him.
And now she's on her knees, servicing him, rubbing herself off on the floor.
It's a remarkable turnabout, and the thing that is so fun about it is that when told from Celestial Fu's point of view, she witnesses the river. She sees it for the first time when Coral is still her slave, and she orders Coral to kill Heather because she wants to witness how the serpent kills with this weapon, her eye. And she becomes obsessed. She's only ever felt the river. She's never seen it. And she becomes obsessed with it, with trying to recreate this effect through technology, which she fails at doing. She is obsessed with the idea of possessing the river's power for a weapon, as you said earlier. And she is deeply frustrated that she's unable to accomplish this. And then one night, as she is, laying in bed, waking up from this recurring dream, she tries to commune with the river itself, who answers her. And she's saying, I am your greatest servant. I am the greatest of the ancients. I am the greatest practitioner of your power.
Yes.
Why is this being closed off to me? Why can't I achieve this? And the river answers, sacrifice. And you're sitting there kind of witnessing, you're like, holy, what is happening here? Is Celestial Fu about to come back stronger and worse than ever? And that's when she has this sort of insane romp and has 4 of her bodyguards, commands them to hack her arms off with their blades.
And what are they going to do?
And what are they going to do? And one of them, somebody, one of her green hooded servants, somebody delivers her arms puts them in a box and delivers them to Coral de Amber. And you suddenly realize that the piece of tech, that the scope that Coral's been looking through from 6 miles away, staring through night after night at Celestial Fu's mansion, you suddenly realize this. Not only is Coral going to carry out her threat against Celestial Fu to shit on her bones, but she's going to take her down so much that Celestial Fu is going to order her own servants to remove her arms and then deliver them by hand to Coral de Amber. It's pretty epic. I mean, it's pretty epic.
Great.
I will say this. With that kind of imagination, Eye of Serpent, not the person you want to cross.
No, I would not want to have Eye of Serpent wanting to put me in some kind of Rube Goldberg machine.
No.
That would be like the last person.
You don't want it. You don't want it. Anybody with that kind of imagination, because that kind of imagination paired with patience, dangerous combination. So.
And if you can write that much, you're patient.
That's right. Great writer, great revenger. Don't know if revenger is actually a word.
I think Ron Wasserman tried to pretend it was so we could pass off that song he wrote for the Avengers.
Go read Eye of Serpent.
Yes.
Is the bottom line here. It's really, it's some of the best work that has ever been done, and it's really amazing to think about how early it was done in the history of the archive and everything. It's
like
some of the
what was it, 98 or 99 was the first year of the archive? I think 99 was the first full year.
Yeah, you could be right. And 99 is when these started getting published. So, I mean, these stories are almost as old as the archive itself, and it's a tremendous sort of foundation that I think you and I and many other artists and writers have been building upon over the years.
And without it, I mean, without stories like this, and without people who were, like I mentioned a few times, that these stories are dedicated to like people who grew the community on the forum, or people who are doing this. And like one thing that always comes to my mind whenever mentioning Eye's stuff is if you read the Petal series, you have to read through A Watering Hole and Escapee, because Escapee is inspired by this.
Yeah.
And there's a reason for it, because it's so powerfully emotional.
And it is. It is. Such good stuff.
And if you don't cry with the scene between Evelyn and Carell, then I just don't know if you're human anymore.
That's right. So, speaking of paying homage to great artists,
yes,
it's a kind of a clunky segue into our third and final topic of discussion on this extra long episode of the Black Room Podcast. You wrote a blog post that I came across on Tumblr, actually, I believe the week that you and I sort of reconnected on Discord. I think it was very close to that same time, because you and I followed each other on Tumblr, and that was when we kind of realized, like, oh, hey, we're still sort of active here, and that's when we kind of looked each other up.
Yeah.
You wrote a blog post titled, "Source the Images for Your Stories." Could you just give us the cliff notes of what that blog post is all about?
Yeah. So basically, we have a bit of an attribution problem in the MC community right now. I don't think this is unique to us, but to be clear, but preface, this is the only fetish community I'm in. Mind control is entirely too much wrapped up in my life. I firmly believe the disclaimer that's on the front of the MC archive saying anyone wanting to carry out these stories has problems, so forth.
Yeah.
And yet at the same time, you can do so consensually. So
at the same time, I would very much like for somebody to carry out these acts on me, please.
and etc. But I'm just saying, what it means, going out and being a horrible mind controller.
Consent is everything.
True. Exactly. Consent is very important.
Yeah.
And that's a whole other thing. I hate the term dubcon, just to throw that out there.
Okay.
But there's this thing where in the MC community, I started out way back when, before I wrote a single story, and before I should have been anywhere, on like the Yahoo groups that would become the collective, or at least as far as I understand, that was sort of where a lot of things started. Yahoo groups with
definitely
sort of people that you'd see, making the early manips.
I believe that the collective was originally a Yahoo group called the HypnoPix Collective.
Yeah,
pretty sure that's its original incarnation.
the name's just it's so long ago. I just remember it was the place where MC popped up, and I remember all the way back then. We'd have various pictures popping up, and people would manip them and move on. And back then, maybe this is just the way I'm remembering it because you remember the stuff that pops up. But you get like the celebrities, and everyone knows who they are. You get the artists that are so ubiquitous that it's oh, that's Bruce Timm's work. There's no question.
Right.
But as things evolve and as things get more esoteric, we don't just have we have more stuff that people are working with, and people are still making manips. Or in some instances, there are some writers, especially this is a thing I see mostly on Tumblr. You'll have people who are making a post and then writing a story to it,
right.
which I don't see as a negative. But there's this bit where the original art matters, because without it, you might not necessarily not have the story. Sometimes it might be I have this story, where's a picture for it?
Yeah.
But I mean, as somebody who's made manips before, you see the picture and it inspires you, and that's important.
Yep.
And there's this drop off that even though we have more artists active in the community than ever, that I can tell, more people that are commissioning and making art for money for us specifically, there's this lack of interest in crediting who you're getting your stuff from. And I'm not going to say I was never guilty of this, because I definitely was. It's not a good thing. But like, there's been many times I've seen a picture and I've gone, that woman has the most mind-blown expression I've ever seen. That might not have been the intent of the original picture, but most models tend to have a certain look. And this is going to show up again. Who is she? And there's nothing. And maybe reverse image search can find something, but there's this problem with reverse image search in Tumblr, where you reverse image search and you just get that Tumblr,
exactly.
or that blog.
You got to do reverse image search minus Tumblr. That's the key.
And that can work, but there's this problem where we're cutting out some by not referencing the people that we're using, by not offering up a chance for people to know them when it's like, especially drawn art or when it's models. We're cutting out part of the community that could be included. Like, there are people that make professional porn that make it for the mind control community. Like Larkin Love, for example, has a great two-parter where she's Power Girl, which she is excellent at for just any number of reasons. And it's this great little mind control bit with first Power Girl having some things happening with her, or it might be the other way around. Regardless, there's some mind control, and it's hot, and it's good.
Listen, pretty much anything with Larkin Love, good chance it's going to be hot, just in case anyone's wondering.
No, she's a great entertainer, a great performer,
terrific performer, and very imaginative, very, very smart woman, very not clever. Like you could enjoy her just for how she looks, but you'd be missing out on 9/10 of what makes her so great. Yes. And while most of the time you're going to see something from hers, there might be a little bit in the corner where you can tell, like, Larkin Love or Love. I remember it took me some time to find her the first time I saw her, but it wasn't the hardest thing compared to some. Yeah. But there's a lot of stories going around that I have no idea who that woman is, or I have no idea who this artist is that drew this beautiful picture. And we're not helping ourselves by not attaching to them. I'm not necessarily even, there are some people out there, and I'm not going to disagree with them that there's not some principle to it, because there is some issue of consent with art as in terms of certain. I don't think there's anything wrong with a picture being turned into an MC at all. I don't think there's anything gross about that, or anything that it implies about the people, or anything like that. That's not anything I would ever say. So I want to make super clear about that. But it's not even a matter of getting an okay from an artist, which I could see some people wanting, or like direct collaboration, especially when it's something you're not trying to sell this. You're not trying to make money directly off of it. You're just you're not even tweaking the picture in some instances. It's just, I'm using this picture to support a story I'm telling, and it's a pretty picture, so have a look. Right. When you don't attribute it, no one else knows what that artist is. They're cut out of the loop. No one else can support their stuff. No one else can go out there and get more art, can get more pictures, can pay for more Instagram. Can become a fan of the model or the site or whatever.
And we lose out on what could be, oh, wait, I can get, because like realistically, let's say you're a fetish model and you're gorgeous, and you can make money having sex, of course, or just posing. If you can make a lot of significant money by looking mindless in various suggestive poses, dressed in different outfits, would you like? And there will be various artists who would not want to do mind control porn for any number of reasons.
Sure.
I know an artist who dropped out of it because she was sick of being propositioned by hypnotists or was just getting gross communication, and that's unfortunate for a whole other reason.
True.
But if we're making it so that these models don't even know because there's no interaction, there's no one's going to them and saying, oh, I really love this, or they're not getting the money, they're going to drop off the face of the earth and no one's going to know why. We're going to miss out on this great opportunity when you don't even have to give them any money. We're not even giving them the word of mouth, wherein they could be doing a lot more.
Right. And in some cases, like there's a redhead who is really, really striking, that does a lot of hypno-related stuff and some vampires. Is it Ludella Hahn? Is that who I'm thinking
Oh,
of?
yeah, she's gorgeous, and no one ever credits her.
Yeah, and she's one that, like, I don't know this. This is just me speculating, but I get the impression that I don't know if she herself, the hypno thing does much for her, or if it's one of those things that she discovered. Hey, there's an audience for this, and so I'll do some of that content. But that's a perfect example of, she's not like a professional porn star. She's an independent. I think she's got either like a mini vids page or like a clips for sale page. That kind of, that's kind of how she gets to work out.
She's professional enough, really.
Well, yeah, excuse me. What I mean is that she's not like she's not working for Brazzers,
Yes, very true.
or Evil Angel, or like she's not like working for the porn studios.
Yes.
I think what she's doing, she's an independent operation. She's doing her own videos. But that's someone I think that is a perfect example of what you're talking about, where word of mouth can really affect her ability to succeed as a business entity.
And just that everyone's seen that gif of the woman with the glasses with another woman putting their hands on the side of her head, her eyes rolling up as she sways back and forth and just looks completely gone.
Yeah.
And it's gorgeous. And we're not going to have more Ludella Hahn if people aren't buying Ludella Hahn, because, like, let's be perfectly fair here. There's no reason for her to do it for free if she can do it for money. And it's not like a bad thing. People deserve to get paid for their art. If people do stuff for free, that's great. But we shouldn't be discouraging people who are. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's by being a community that can come off as a bit happy to ignore intellectual property completely, we make it so that we're less attractive to cater to. And that's kind of hurting us more than, I mean, it's hurting other people too, but we're the ones missing out on porn. Like, be selfish here for a minute. Ignore anything else.
Which is the first rule that you don't do.
Yeah, you don't kick yourself in the crotch. Come on. Unless you're into that, in which case. But,
I was going to say, I mean,
yeah, I'm not here to kink shame. That's later.
All right. I was really, really fascinated to read your blog post on this, because it's something that I have thought about a lot over the years. Since I began manipulating in 2005, I think. I can't quite remember now. 2005, I think, is when I started.
You got started about the same time.
I'm sure that I've got a website on the internet somewhere that would probably answer this question for me. But anyway, I have not made it a point to identify the models in my work or the source of the photographs that I've used. And in some cases, I went to great pains to hide the sources that I got my work from. There's one example that springs to mind immediately. One of my earliest pieces, it's called Nurse, and it's the first in that whole sort of Impero mythology that I did.
I love that series so much, by the way.
Thank you. And the first image was taken from the website of a porn star called Kiko Woo, and I removed the watermark from the image before that was part of the manipulation I did.
Yeah.
And it was because that the watermark was so offensive uh, to the rest of the image. It was like so kind of loud and ostentatious
Yeah.
and really drew the eye. And my artistic sensibilities, like, I got to get rid of this.
Yeah.
So I took it out, and that became sort of a habit of mine. I would always sort of cleverly remove the watermark on the image. And from my perspective, it was sort of a demonstration of my technical ability, or something like, oh, look, I can cover up anything and make it all look seamless, or whatever. It was sort of
Yeah.
an ego trip for me, I guess.
I can see that. It's hard to do. I've tried that with some things, and especially given if it gets across some skin, you'll ruin the picture if you do it wrong.
Yeah, it takes a little time, but anyway, so I was doing that for years and years and years, and I read, it might have even been on Tumblr, but at some point I read somebody who was very upset about one of their images. Like, this is the model I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Like, an image from her site had been used in a mind control manip. She was disgusted at the usage, but really, really offended that they had removed her watermark in the process of doing this. And she was talking about how important that watermark was, that, that was the way that people were, basically exactly what you're saying, that this was the way people were going to find her. This is the way that she was, this is her livelihood that they're messing
Yeah.
with. And I sat there reading that, and I was like, wow, I have never, ever considered this from her side of the equation before. And it was kind of a real food for thought moment. And so time goes on, and I I begin thinking about, one of the things that I've always done in my pictures, unless they just have some ridiculous, stage name, I've
Yeah.
always named the characters in the manip stories that I've written as the names of the models within them, if I knew the names
Huh.
of the models, if I could find out.
Yeah.
So if I've got a manip with Aria Giovanni, the character in the manip is named Aria, you
Nice
know,
touch.
or Miss Giovanni, or whatever. And I always did that, kind of think, well, if anybody wants to, try to track these down, I'll at least give them a hint. And so anyway, after reading this model's post and how upset she was about this, I began thinking, I'm going to make an effort to do this. And so when I did this latest big redesign of my site last year, I created this new feature where I can tag all of my manips with the performers that appear in them. And you can click on the performer name, and you can see all the manips that performer appears in. And, if I've taken the time, I'll, sometimes go in and just write a little bit on, why I think they're so great, like something about their facial expressions, their body language, whatever, just kind of
Yeah.
little artist notes or whatever. But I started doing that for the exact reasons that you're talking about. That I've seen things that I've been so frustrated. It's like, I want more of this. I want to find this person. I want to, uh, you know, I want to get more of this model or whatever. And I'm going to Google image search. I'm going to Yandex image search and trying to find a result that isn't in the tumblr.com domain. And
And sometimes it's not there.
right. And so, at least on my own site, I've really done a reverse course on this, and am now making a real effort to make sure that I identify the models that appear in all the manips. And actually, I have a similar feature that I'll be rolling out sometime this year. Actually, it probably won't be too long, where I'm going to start identifying the source of the pictures if I know it as well. So, in addition to seeing the models, you'll also see, and it came from this photographer, or it came from this website,
Yeah.
so on and so forth.
That's
But
that's something that we have. Sorry. Go ahead.
no, but the thing that I was going to say is that I will tell you also, and I can't speak for anyone but myself, but I will tell you that
Yeah.
part of the hesitance that I have had in over the years in uh, in talking about the source of the pictures and that kind of thing, is there is a certain fear that I have of litigation, frankly.
Yes.
And it may be a little bit outdated at this point, since mashups and manips and things like that are not so unique anymore. But I can remember the days of privatepages.com, which was the very first real collection of manips on the internet related to mind control.
Yeah.
And when they started trying to charge money for access to the site, when they started to, to try to offset, I'm sure, the enormous cost of hosting that website in the late 90s.
Yeah.
As soon as they started trying to charge money, the copyright notices and the cease and desist letters started showing up. And, within a year, that site was effectively gone. And I've always been sort of terrified of having that experience. And it's always made me very hesitant to reveal that information, because somehow in my mind, it was like, if I put like a link to the website where this came from, the people on that website can see, the incoming links. They can see the site that you were on before you came to their site. And if they start doing some sniffing, then I might start getting some of these letters.
And I even remember, I'm going to feel terrible because I don't remember her name. The woman who was Persephone, I think was her name, in The Matrix Reloaded.
You're talking about Monica Bellucci.
Yes, I remember there was a picture of Monica Bellucci. It was on the Collective.
Yeah.
Or a similar site. I could be wrong on it being the Collective at this point.
Okay.
It was like years ago that someone had edited. There were some spirals, some green. I remember it being rather pretty.
Yeah.
And it was a picture of her from a period like getting super terribly big. And that did get a CFD because like that picture that like someone attached to her entourage basically was trying to, keep that from being everywhere on the internet.
Right.
So it's not the most ridiculous. Like, I don't remember the exact details. I don't remember who did the image, but I remember seeing it, thinking it was hot, and then trying to look for it and looking around and, oh, okay, that happened. So it's not the most unrealistic thought. Like, maybe it's not anymore that kind of degree, because as you mentioned, I mean, just the other day I listened to a mashup of an episode of The Simpsons and Smash Mouth. That's completely ordinary.
Because obviously the human race asked for that.
I mean, we need steamed hams meets All-Star. There's just no society where that works. Or doesn't work. Whatever is actually right, you can decide that for yourself.
Yeah.
But it's a very real fear, because especially, I mean, let's be perfectly honest. With the way the internet works right now, if you're doing anything good faith that involves anyone else's IP at all, the results can be far more than you necessarily deserve. Yeah. I would say that, hey, take that down. You're done. Doing this is pretty fair. But we all know that can get a lot nastier. There can be a lot more expectations. There can be a lot more crackdowns, and no one wants that. Like, we're not. No. I don't think anyone's doing this maliciously. Like, no one's like going out of their way to attack anyone's livelihoods. And like the Hypno hub or Hypno, I think they're the hub still. My brain wants to call it Boru sometimes, even though, because it still uses the interface, even has the site source over on the left. Underneath all the tags, there's a source right there, which is, I found all kinds of things because, this is made by a Japanese artist that's on Pixiv. Right. And then I can click around, and it's a great way to share things around, because a lot of those artists, I wouldn't know how to commission the Japanese artists, but there's a lot of artists that you could still commission directly off of that I wouldn't be able to find otherwise. I'm not going to find someone's deviant art through a reverse image search, probably. I mean, I've done it before, but it's kind of hit or miss.
It is. I mean, you're definitely throwing a dart and kind of hoping a target appears in front of it.
Whereas, like, just it's a small thing, and like, because basically, if there's any takeaway from this, my hope isn't I think you're a bad person, because I don't. Like, no one doing this is being. I don't think you're out there trying to hurt people or make it so there's less good things out there. I joke about you're hurting porn because I mean it's a situation that I feel is not in a situation where we can't be jovial about it. Nothing horrible is happening right now that's untenable. Can't be fixed.
Right.
But just a little bit of making it so that, and this image today was, has this actor or this actress filmed here. You can find more of this photo set here. And even if you can't like. There's no active link back. Like let's say you're using Erica Campbell. Last I heard, she's out of the adult industry, so there's no real. You can't go and pay her anywhere.
Right.
So at least there's that. It's a little bit of respect that I think it might not necessarily give us all the new content we could possibly ever hope for, because one could. But
artificial intelligence is coming, though. I mean, let's just hope.
And that's going to be. Well, we just have to hope the artificial intelligence thinks it's worth, keeping us. I mean, yeah, it's already doing the whole core thing of making us want it, so we're set. But we just need to. The more that it's shown that we want to work with creators and that we're respecting creators of the original works that we get inspired by, that we move to another step, or like, I mean, I'm not saying you see a picture somewhere, you write a story, that doesn't necessarily matter. But when you're putting it right there, when you're basically, if you're putting a picture on a Tumblr post, you're kind of taking credit for it if you don't say whose it is. And we could make this, we could look so much more welcoming, inviting, and frankly lucrative. And especially when you think about things like these days, things like Patreon can support porn in such an amazing way. There are women like Hidori Rose is a cosplayer who doesn't always wear all that much when she's cosplaying.
Oh,
there's a lot of
the best kind. Yeah,
exactly. And she's making some great stuff because she only needs to charge so many people $5, and then it's going to trickle out there eventually. And that's all because someone somewhere is paying. I'm not saying you have to go out there and pay all these people, but if someone knows who they can pay, they're going to get paid. You get more porn.
That's right. Well, I agree with you, and as for any number of reasons, frankly, for me, I do a lot of reverse image searching off of Tumblr images. I've talked about this in blog posts. A lot of the source material for my manips, I see something on Tumblr, and I say I'd love to find a high res version of this, and so reverse image searching I go, or I'd love to find the whole gallery, and so on and so forth. And I for any number of reasons, even just just the courtesy of give the people who might want to see more of this the best chance of doing it. From that all the way up to the more altruistic stuff, there's a ton of great reasons to do it, and I don't think there's any really compelling reasons not to do it at this point.
And if let's just say worst case scenario, because realistically, we've seen what happens when people get found manipulating images that people don't want. There's enough evidence out there right now of what's going to happen. It's not the doomsday scenario. No. And it's not like these people are just like, I mean, we're not limiting it to one actress here or there. I can't think of an actress I haven't seen, usually with their head slapped on someone else's body with bigger tits.
Yes.
Which I'm not even going to get into how weird that is. Don't you want everything to match up? But whatever. It's everywhere by now. There is, I mean, the BE groups do it. From what I understand, I'm not the most into that community, but there's some overlap, so you see things.
Right.
There, it's everywhere. And just a little bit of, if you get caught, they're going to tell you to take it down. They're not going to come after your family. It's not like Napster back in the day. You're not hurting yourself by putting yourself out there unless you're, I guess I could see them maybe being a little bit more litigious if you're actively charging.
Right.
But that's always going to happen.
Yeah.
You don't want to do that.
If money's involved, then that's going to, and I mean, frankly, that's the reason that I haven't, considered any kind of donations or Patreon up to this point, is that if money's involved, that's going to complicate everything a great deal. If you're creating derivative art and making money at doing it, then I think that makes attribution all the more of a priority.
Yeah.
If you're making money off of it, I think at the very least you owe the original artist a chance to wet their beak as well.
Yeah, and it's share and share alike. We're a community. It's not like necessarily about you doing anything like It's just that everyone has the same chance to enjoy what they're doing, to get more out of it, and frankly, despite what stories will tell you, and like most erotic entertainers aren't there because they're miserable. It happens, unfortunately, and
Yes.
a lot of the mainstream porn industry is still unfortunately very exploited. But you'll have people out there like Angela White, who you can tell adores every moment she's on screen.
She
And
likes her job.
I mean, it's infectious.
It
It's
is.
great. And I mean, as much fun as it is to get as much as we possibly can, I having everyone be happy while they're doing it is the very least that we should be asking for.
I think so as well. Yeah.
Even if they're
That's
pretending to not be, I'm totally okay with that. You can
yeah.
pretend to be miserable. That's okay.
If you enjoy pretending that you're miserable, you can go over to
Yes.
kink.com
Yeah.
in the San Francisco Bay Area and
Or if they're paying you enough, that's also okay. If you're okay with it because they're paying you enough,
you
you have
know,
to actually find it okay.
again, it's all about consent. If you're exploiting yourself,
Exactly.
that's your thing. But
Exactly, because it's not it's not selling, it's renting
right.
some time.
I think that but just kind of bringing the conversation back, I agree that the the onus is on us, the artists, to put in the attribution, and it takes a few extra moments. And again, if I'm going to go through the trouble of finding out who the performers are so that I can name the characters after them, or or you just put in the tag or whatever. If I've got that information, because I want to have it, then it really doesn't cost me any more time to share that down the line with whoever might be reading my site or seeing it on Tumblr or whatever. And I've had um I've had the orientation video that I did years ago
So good.
that has been recycled a lot. I see that pop up in
I've
all
seen that.
kinds of places, and I'm always very thankful because oftentimes in the comments somebody will say, "This is by Callidus. You should go to his site and check out his other stuff if you like this." And I'm always very, very thankful for the people that take the time, to make those comments. And I just think, and again, I'm not making any money off my website or anything like that, but I certainly appreciate when, people see that and they're like, oh, I want to find more of this. I'm really happy that somebody is kind of pointing them the way to my website so they can. The very least that I can do is the same for all of the pictures and the few videos and things that I've used. It's the very least I can do is to give them that same courtesy. So, in a very fundamental way, if you're a manip artist, do unto others.
Exactly. Let's make it so there's more stuff out there to minute because everyone can eat.
Yes, and I mean, not that I have time to manip the stuff that I have now, but boy, I sure do love looking for more new stuff.
I mean, I haven't even in years, and yet I eventually dropped off and just have it in other folders because I mean I'm not about to lie that I don't have multiple terabytes sitting around. I mean
Yes,
I don't think I'm actually up to terabytes, but
I
that
have
sounds better.
I got an 8 terabyte hard drive last fall that I'm not
Oh.
going to tell you how full it is, but
I mean, even as recently as I think like 3 or 4 years ago, I still had a folder that was just this is too good. Like it's not mind control yet, but the slightest little bit, and it's
yeah.
just bam to manip.
One of these days, I'll send you a screenshot of my source photos folder.
Oh, good.
It's
And some of the stuff you pull off is still insane to me. I just can't. Like even having taken some classes in Photoshop, I can't even see how you do it.
well, thank you. That's very nice of you to say. I mean, I would love to tell you that it's some great talent, but it's mostly just practice. it's
At most things. I mean,
it's mostly just
I
practice.
imagine. I mean, I tell the same thing with I've had more than one person say, "Oh wow, this story was so great," and I'm like,
Uh huh.
"Yeah, you did not see the 13 years before I posted this."
Exactly right. That's exactly right. It's one of those things that I don't know. It's if you love it enough that you do it, that your spare time, you're looking forward to your spare time so that you can do that, write or manip or whatever. If you love it enough that your spare time is dedicated to it, that's a good way to invest the time that you need to get competent at it. And uh, it's it's one of those things that I mean, you and I talk about, like we read these stories, like, how do they pull this off and make it look so easy?
Yeah.
Practice.
No.
Practice.
Yeah. Exactly.
So, I will say, and I'm referring, of course, to myself now, despite the confusion.
Yeah, we're thankfully past the confusion there.
Our earlier conversation. I say the exact same to you. I mean, when you tell me, I mean, look at how much you've already written in your career, how much you're actively doing right now. When you tell me, so, like, you throw out the numbers for how many words a day that you write, how many words you've written this year, and I think to myself, oh, gee, I'd like to be a little bit better writer. And then you're like, oh yeah, like I got another 13,000 knocked down. I'm like, oh, that that's what it takes. That's the.
And I'll take a second though, just as anyone can write. And this isn't. I'm not going to go to huge things. This could be like I could do a whole thing, and I might someday.
Don't sell yourself short, though.
Thank you. Oh no, I know, and like I'm good. I mean,
yes.
I will argue that I should have learned to edit sooner, but I'm pretty good at this point. At least I like to think.
Yes,
but anyone
can consider you a very competent writer.
Thank you. But it's like I just because like you're very sweet. Just because, like, I hear that a lot. The whole "you're so great," or I love this. I wish I could write. And as soon as you start, you get closer to being good. I'll never forget. I was at a Powell's in Portland, and I was seeing Chuck Palahniuk. I asked the question, "How do you avoid writing your first bad drafts?" And he said, "You don't. You write it, and then you keep going."
Yep.
So just keep writing. And seriously, if you even vaguely want to write, just even if you only get I'll talk about my word counts in the terms of the thousands because that's how I write. But like I have family that are professional writers that can't write more than 100 words a day that still make thousands of dollars a year actually doing writing. So it's just however you need to pace yourself through it. Our community needs more good writers. Not that I think who we have are terrible, but like Hypnotic Harlequin, who just started writing last year, is amazing.
I don't think I've read any of their stuff. I'm gonna have to go look that up.
Lootbox was one that was going around on Tumblr. You've heard of Elf on the Shelf, which is going to make people groan, but it's actually really good.
Yeah.
We have all kinds of new people coming out of the woodwork every day because they're writing. So if you want to, do it, and you'll be amazing. I believe in you.
It's true. I think the best piece of advice that I ever heard on this, and so I'll pass it on here, and it's very similar to what you were just saying. And it's one of those things that it was such a profound realization for me because I really did not understand it prior to this person saying it. But it was a writer, someone who'd worked in TV, and the name escapes me at the moment. But anyway, this writer said that the journey to becoming good is really, really difficult because what happens is you have your taste and then you have your talent. And when you start off, you're a noob, and they're both about the same, which is to say very low. Not very good taste, not very good talent. And what happens is when you start off, your talent grows a little bit. And as you begin to kind of see the craft behind good writing, your taste grows faster and it quickly outstrips your talent. You have better taste than you have talent. You can see why your stories are not very good compared to the people that you look up to and read and whatever. You have to keep writing to get out of that period. He says that is where most people quit, when their taste outstrips their talent. They get discouraged. They think, I'm never going to be good at this. I'm never, like, this situation is never going to change. And you've got to keep pushing past that. You've got to keep going because eventually your talent will catch up with your taste. And you will find that you now have the ability to wield that power and to craft your stories up to the level of taste that you enjoy in other people's stories. But you have to persevere.
And this is a great community for it because we've got 2 forums that are crazy about telling you how great you are if you post onto the EMCSA.
Yep.
Tumblr will love to reblog your stuff while saying how great it is. Picture or not. Just keep going because I don't know. My big thing that I've had lately is I had this startling revelation, not so startling, but it felt it to me, that I've been writing for 13 years. And when I started, the EMCSA had only been around for 6, which means that as long as those people have been writing in the genre, and they could have been writing before the EMCSA existed, but we don't know.
True.
I've been doing it longer. And I don't think I'm better than all those people at all. I mean, I aspire to catch up. I'm always going to feel like I'm like chasing, even when I have them telling me, "Oh, I love this story,"
That's
and
a
I'm
good
like,
quality to have.
"How?"
That's
Yeah,
that's what drives you to be better, is that
exactly.
never being satisfied.
I have to make something that makes like the ultimate goal that I don't really think is real, but the sort of the dreams to write that story that makes somebody else go, "Oh, hey, I should reappear out of the
Right.
ether."
Right. Right.
That sort of. But I really believe that at this point, growing the community forward is like such a priority for me and should be for everybody. So there are people out there that want to tell you that you've got something, even if it's just an idea, and join us, and we will be really happy to help you get past that point where you just hate everything you do, because it happens.
It's so true. So very, very true. And I know that there's I know that there are creepers out there
Oh, yeah.
lurking. Yeah, I know I know that it happens. But um, despite the fact that there are some people that have real difficulty understanding how to behave themselves when interacting with complete strangers about matters of a sexual nature,
Seriously,
I
people.
I have also met some of the most wonderful, warm, kind people that I've ever known in my life in this community. I've created friendships with people I know that I'll be in touch with my entire life from this community. People who are really, truly charitable and kind people, and who are always happy to help out anybody with their art, with a suggestion, an honest critique, a word of encouragement. Our community is terrific for that count. So I second what you're saying. I just used more words to do it
Oh,
for
hey,
for
no.
some reason.
The more people we get saying this, it's important because like I run into people all the time. They're like, "Oh, I really want to write, but I'm afraid people are going to hate it, or I think I'm terrible." Most of the people, spoiler alert though on that, mostly if you think you're bad, you're better than you actually are, or
Yep.
than you think you are. Because if you can realize you're bad, you're already past that point where you
Exactly.
grow.
Your taste is already a little bit better than your talent, so you've already moved into phase 2.
But it's okay if you suck, because you know what? If your first draft is terrible, that just means you have a second. I mean, I don't necessarily think
Yeah.
this means that anything's terrible, but even Trilby thought the first ending of Leasehold was bad, or at least not the one that it should have forever.
Yeah.
So there's 2 paths there. You can
That's
take
true.
the second one. We're all here to help.
That's exactly right. And I guess that's the thing, is to not get too, I don't know, to not get too starstruck. And I'm terrible for, not necessarily in relation to mind control smut, but in other things. I'm terrible for looking at something that's really good and saying, "I quit. I'll never,
Yeah.
you know, I'll never be this this good at this thing that I'm doing, so why bother?" I'm terrible about doing that. It's one of those things that, as I've gotten older, I'm like, I got to stop that. That's, because it's fun, and I shouldn't stop myself from doing it,
Yeah.
just because I'm never going to be the best at it or whatever. And that's the other thing to remember, is that you don't have to be, you know, if that's what your goal is, if that's what you aspire to, then great, go for it. And the fact that you want it will probably drive you to achieve it. But
Mhm.
you don't have to have that to derive enjoyment for it, or to be good at it, or anything else. All you have to do is, really, I mean, it sounds silly, but all you really have to do is just be honest in the way you
Yeah.
express yourself. Just do
Oh, no.
whatever it is that you love, whatever it is that you'd want to see, and the rest will kind of take care of itself. How did we turn this into? I mean, this is like an after
I
school
think it more
special on creating mind control porn. This is
I think it
awesome.
flowed I think it flowed from the we should help other people achieve what they want. So we
Yeah.
should also help ourselves achieve what we want to. It's all about everyone working together. We
It's
help other people
it's
achieve, we help ourselves achieve.
It's a
You get
symbiotic organism slowly taking over everyone one at a time, but making them love it while it happens.
I really need to write a symbiote story.
Yes, you do. And yes, because I really need to read one of your symbiote stories. So that's a date. I guess we should stop now before we use up all the oxygen on Earth.
At least in my room.
It's been so fun chatting with you
Yeah.
yet again. We hope all of you have enjoyed the chat as well. If you have any thoughts that you'd like to share, any reaction, comments, etc., please come and find us. You can find my dear friend Madam Kistulot at madamkistulot.net.
Mm-hmm.
You'll also find links to all of her social media accounts and other places that you can look in on her work. You can find me at callidus-mc.com, and you can always connect with me on Tumblr. I'm pretty active there. Twitter a little bit. We look forward to hearing from you wherever you shout at us, and if you like the show, please let us know, because that's the whole point of that thing we just went through just then.
And we want excuses to do more. Like, really, we're looking for excuses.
That's true.
If we even get one person saying, "I really love that. When you talk about this, I have an excuse to tell Callidus we have to do it."
That's exactly right. And that's kind of how we operate. Like, we don't really need a reason to do the show, just sort of an opportunity.
It's fun.
It's fun. So, thank you all very, very much for joining us for this spectacular episode of Black Room. Spectacular in terms of its length, of the Black Room podcast. We look forward to seeing you next time. We'll be talking about more matters of an erotic mind control nature. Until then, for both of us, farewell.
And keep an eye out.
Oh!
I wasn't going to miss it that time.
Didn't see that coming.